Ecce sacerdos magnus, behold the great high priest. These words in the book of Sirach are prayed at the Mass of a confessor bishop. And from the first time I heard them, I thought of Archbishop John Humphreys. Born in the late 1920s, John Humphreys was a man whose calling was written on his heart from childhood. His brothers had him play altar. He used Necco wafers as communion hosts. Even then, he knew who he was meant to be. But life had other plans first. He served his country during the Korean conflict, not in combat, but as a cook in the United States Army. His skill in the kitchen became so well known, he was selected as a personal chef for a general. It was a detail that would later make his family smile because it perfectly captured who he was, a man who nourished others, literally and spiritually. On June 28, 1958, he married his wife, Patricia, the love of his life, and they would share 64 years of marriage, a life built on devotion, humor, perseverance, and deep companionship. His dream of priesthood seemed delayed, but it was never lost. When canonical discipline changed to permit the ordination of married men in certain old Roman Catholic jurisdictions, John Humphreys answered the call without hesitation. On August 7th, 1966, he was ordained a priest by Bishop John Swarhout, and at last, his childhood dream became a reality. But his priesthood was never just about the altar. It was about serving God also through his people. Before and after his ordination, Father Humphreys taught English in Florida schools. He was beloved by his students, engaging, passionate, bringing literature to life. He had an amazing ability to memorize poetry and prayers. Absolutely amazing. By the early 1970s, the Catholic Church was in crisis. The Second Vatican Council had unleashed forces of modernism that Pope St. Pius X had warned about decades earlier. The ancient Mass was suppressed. Traditional teaching was questioned. Moral clarity gave way to dialogue and compromise. In England, Archbishop Gerard George Shelley, who had spent years in Rome, walking and talking with Cardinal Altiavani during Vatican II, saw what was happening. Shelley had maintained friendships with traditional Catholic prelates who were being marginalized for defending the faith. Well, one of Shelley's American bishops consecrated a fellow named Clement in 74 for a congregation that contradicted traditional Catholic moral teaching. Shelley acted decisively. And on May 24th in 1975, at Our Lady of Good Hope, Old Roman Catholic Church, Pinellas Park, Florida, Archbishop Shelley, together with Bishop Fairfield, consecrated the then Father Humphreys as the first Old Roman Catholic Bishop of Florida. The charge was clear: serve the ever-increasing needs of the faithful who ardently desire to maintain the fullness of the Catholic faith and practice. Father Humphreys, the army cook, the English teacher, the devoted husband, became a bishop in apostolic succession, not for glory, not for power, but to preserve the faith intact during a time of unprecedented crisis. When Archbishop Shelley died in August 1980, the succession was not automatic. Bishop Farrell was elected and consecrated in 1981, but illness soon forced his resignation. On April 23, 1984, after a period of careful discernment, Bishop John Humphreys was selected as the 5th Archbishop of the See of Cairglau. Cairglau is the Welsh for Gloucester in England, and it's the name of the titular see that Shelley inherited from Williams, who inherited it from Bishop Mathew. Humphreys now held two offices. He was the Bishop of Florida and the Archbishop of Cairglau. And that whole name, where the name came from, was Bishop Williams, who lived in Gloucester, sheltered Archbishop Mathew in his retirement years. And this was the name of that portion of the old Roman Catholic Church that wanted to be in union with Rome. And it's a long story. I get this all the time, are you Catholic? And I always have to answer, well, it depends. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about of the faith, or are you talking about union with Francis and Leo? And it used to be an easy question because the church is both institution, divinely instituted by Christ, but also a faith. And that used to be, there was no debate about what was what. It was the same. But if the last 60 years and the last 10, 15 years have taught us anything in particular, it's that, things are pretty crazy in the church. Here's a short version of the story. Under Pope Eugene III, the ancient See of Utrecht was granted a surreal status, that is, self-governing. Centuries later, and that basically means they can name their own bishops. So, like our Ukrainian friends, there's some overlap with Roman dioceses. Then it's analogous. It's not identical situation, but it's similar. Centuries later, after the grant of the See of Utrecht, during the Protestant Reformation or Revolution, depending on your perspective, zealous Jesuits implored the Holy Father to retract these privileges to protect the unity of the Church, and Utrecht refused. They did nothing wrong, and the gift could not be retracted with a legal cause. And this situation persisted without major incident until about 1723. And there was the chapter of Utrecht, which elected Cornelius Steenhoven as Archbishop, consecrated by Bishop Dominique Verlet without the papal mandate. And then that caused the trouble, the canonical issue. And, it's a very long story, but it really boils down to like the name Old Catholic and Old Roman Catholic. They don't actually reference the traditional debate. They actually referred to that Rome decided to handle it. They couldn't win canonically. There was no case. So what happened was it was decided that they would appoint a parallel hierarchy. And I thought for a little while that Bishop Strickland might attempt to do that when they dismissed him without proper procedure. He was under no obligation to resign. Canonically, they would have been stuck in a spot, and they probably would have done the same thing that happened back in 1723, and that was appoint a parallel hierarchy. And then you'd have people loyal to the old bishop and people loyal to the new bishop. So you see where the name comes from. So the thing is that for a while, this was not even considered a schism. It was considered an irregularity. And the idea was the reason why Rome didn't make it a big deal was because they figured, well, people would migrate to the new hierarchy and the old hierarchy would die out from attrition. And so basically, the old hierarchy without dispute was maintaining apostolic succession, Catholic sacraments, and ancient doctrine. And that was their mission, except that they also wanted to reject the Jesuit machinations that had provoked the crisis. The controversy had been building since 1691, and Jesuits accused Archbishop Caudy of becoming Jansenist, and this again was never proven. In fact, he was acquitted by a jury of 10 cardinals. Caudy was suspended nonetheless by papal decree without charges specified or accusers named. Not theological difference, just church politics. Again, you can see a parallel in Bishop Strickland's plight. Let's fast forward to 1896. England is still without a Catholic hierarchy. From Henry VIII's rebellion, it had even after all of that, there was a significant number of clergy who considered themselves Catholic, but separated. They prayed for the Pope. They used the Roman liturgy, including all the prayers for the Pope, and they believed their orders to be valid. And then my favorite Pope did something they found shocking. Leo XIII, an apostolicae curiae in 1896, declared Anglican orders absolutely null and utterly void. And it struck Anglo-Catholics like a thunderbolt because for those who held Catholic beliefs, Leo's words delivered, with papal authority and meant life without sacraments, save baptism and matrimony. It sent everybody into a bit of a conundrum. Among concerned Anglicans, a movement arose to obtain certainty of their orders being valid. And their options basically were they find a sympathetic Catholic bishop or find an Orthodox. So within the Church of England, assisted by a few Roman bishops who were helping them underground, there arose an order of corporate reunion founded in 1877, which in its early days was rather secretive for fear of the Low Church Anglicans. Ordinations were conducted in secret, leaving the faithful unsure of just who possessed valid orders. So Matthew's consecration and this Arnold Harris Matthew was a Roman Catholic priest, born of a mixed Catholic Anglican marriage, and he was resolved to provide the sacramental needs of the Anglican faithful, the Anglo-Catholic faithful. So in 1908, they had a problem. They sought Rome's help, and Rome refused. And the reason why Rome refused was, again, politics. It had nothing to do with faith. It had nothing to do with what happened was Rome was trying to reestablish the formal hierarchy since Henry VIII took it away. And it was a very politically sensitive thing. So basically, these Anglo-Catholics were thrown under the bus for the political expedience, or what they deemed to be the greater good. And there was actually some open letters being Matthew and the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time. They're quite interesting to go through historically. But there was a public bun fight, and basically Pius X sided with Canterbury. He was like, no, you know what? I'm just going to deal with Anglicans. I'm not going to deal with the Anglicans who want to be Catholic. And so it is kind of counterintuitive. St. Pius X is one of my favorite saints and favorite popes, and yet I definitely disagree with his decision here. But then again, I'm not sitting in his chair or his shoes. But the solution that was proposed and what happened was they figured, well, you get this branch of Catholics that are sort of misbehaving from Rome's point of view, but they're valid and they're still Catholic and they still hold the faith. They were a little bit more Gallican than a lot of the rest of the European church. That means that they prefer to run in sort of a more conciliar fashion, which is really ironic considering the fact that the church's troubles today are largely because they adopted that model. But anyway, in 1908, Archbishop Gerardus Goul, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, of Utrecht, consecrated this Matthew as a legionary Old Catholic bishop for Great Britain. Now, I want you to pay attention to the difference between Old Catholic and Old Roman Catholic. So he was appointed an Old Catholic. We're going to get to where Old Roman comes from in a minute. But Old Catholic at the time referred to that ancient see of Utrecht. And what happened was, so Matthew's mission was to provide valid Catholic sacraments to Anglicans seeking full communion, while allowing for vernacular worship and optionally married clergy, which is what Anglicans had, you see. And again, the current church, the 21st century, accepts all of this. But the church back then, it was a political... Canterbury would have considered it an intrusion if Rome allowed any kind of dispensation for these married clergy coming from the Anglicans at the time. So Rome refused to help them, and they didn't want to jeopardize the restoration of the official Catholic hierarchy. And you can sort of understand the politics of it. But again, it left a lot of people in the lurch. By 1910, Utrecht was really liberalizing. They sort of went off the rails. They abandoned traditional practices. In part, I think it was because they felt snubbed after Vatican I. They weren't invited, whereas in Trent, they were invited. So I think there was probably some hurt feelings there, but I'm just speculating. But whatever the reason, they decided they weren't going to accept Vatican I. Well, that was a problem because they were always disgruntlement, but they were sort of made a formal announcement to that effect. They weren't going to accept Vatican I. They were also decided just to admit Anglicans to communion without conversion. They were ceasing daily mass and the veneration of saints, and it was really going off the rails. So Archbishop Matthew issued his declaration of autonomy and independence. He's no longer Old Catholic, but described himself as Old Roman Catholic, preserving Utrecht's apostolic succession while remaining Roman Catholic faith in its traditional fullness. And because it was the only portion of that line that wanted union with Peter, we claim to be the legitimate heirs of, I guess, that heritage. So the thing is that Matthew even composed a special prayer that makes it very clear that he always wanted to be in full union with Rome. And the thing is that Matthew saw the Old Roman Catholic Church as a canonical bridge, maintaining valid orders and traditional practice until reunion with Rome became possible politically. He sought what would later be called a uniate arrangement. That's actually a term that's normally used when you're talking about Orthodox that want to come into Rome. So they, under the Holy Father, they're called uniate Eastern rites, right? So we borrowed that word to describe it because that's the same situation. We desire full communion with the Catholic Pope while preserving certain ancient liberties. Just basically what we were given by Eugene III. So in June 1913, Matthew consecrated a Prince Archbishop Rudolf de Landis, as a legionary bishop of Scotland. And he was an Austro-Hungarian prince. So the thing is, he was considered an enemy alien by the British government because of during World War I. So then he took off to New York in 1914. And he continued just the work of validating Anglican orders for those who wanted to make sure their orders are valid. And then he took up evangelizing groups on the margins of the Roman Church. So again, it's hard for us to believe in the 21st century, but there were a lot of ethnic politics in the church in America. So the Irish and the Germans, and to some extent, I guess, the Italians, but mostly the Irish and the Germans were sort of in control of things, and the other ethnicities, such as the Mexicans and the like, were not amused. And so basically there was a vacuum, and I believe the Polish National Church also probably evolved from this kind of situation, which happened in the US. And so on the British side, Matthew's efforts were met with only moderate success in England. Some American congregations held a mixture of Catholic and Old Catholic ideas, which is problematic if you want to be in union with Rome. And organizational unity was not a long suit of the church. Essentially, Father Martin likes to describe old Roman Catholicism. Essentially, it describes a line more than a religion. Juridically, okay, or sort of like institutionally, it is a separate legal entity from the Roman Catholic Church. So when people ask me whether I'm Catholic, I have to clarify, what question are you asking? Are you asking about my theology, or are you asking about my institution? And again, ordinarily, that would be the same thing. But again, these are the times we live in. So amongst these bishops that Matthew consecrated in hopes of sort of, building church unity, which of course it had the opposite effect, unfortunately, there arose a couple of different visions within the men that he consecrated. There was a fellow named Bernard Mary Williams, and he was a pro-uniate, and he lived from, he was active from 1919 to 1952. And on March 25th, 1917, Matthew appointed Williams as his coadjutor with right of succession. So upon Matthew's death in December 20th, 1919, Williams became the second Archbishop of Carrick-Glau. And Williams faced a fundamental question about the old Roman Catholic Church's mission. Some of Matthew's bishops, notably Francis Bacon and Lambert, felt that they would be more successful reestablishing this order of corporate union within the Church of England itself. So they sort of moved in a more Anglican direction. They served as a curate and vicar, respectively, at St. Gabriel's Anglican Church in South Bromley, and they were basically available for the ordination of Anglican ministers with doubts about their order's validity. So as you can imagine, for any of these guys who eventually convert to Roman Catholicism, this causes a big mess, because now you've got about half the Anglicans running around without valid orders according to Rome, and half of them running around with orders. And then on top of that, you have Orthodox helping to ordain some of these Anglicans. So it's a very complicated thing. You see people on Catholic Twitter, they're so sure about what orders are valid and which aren't. It's a complicated question. And not even every priest or bishop is competent to evaluate this. It's a sort of a specialized subset, or at least it was. I mean, until after Benedict resigned, sort of the tone has changed. So the whole way that the Vatican looks at priesthood in general, let alone the different denominations, has changed quite a bit, or different ecclesial communities. And again, it's beyond the scope of tonight to get into, but it's a fascinating discussion if you guys want to ask questions about it afterwards. So anyway, others want to be united with the Orthodox, and some old Romans thought that they could become a bridge between the East and the West. And some of them even made agreements with the patriarchs of Antioch and Alexandria. So basically they agreed not to use the Filioque and put a special prayer, an Orthodox prayer in the Mass, which of course my group never was involved in any of that, but that's where there's a lot of confusion. Like this whole term of Old Roman, like it's not like the Presbyterian Church, the Methodist Church, or whatever. It refers to a line of orders, and you really have to go by what bishop. Just sort of similar to Pius X. I mean, you have Pius X, that's the official society, but then you also have a couple derivative societies like the Resistance, the Marian Corps, and that. And so those are led by different prelates. So basically, Williams had the idea that he held that any hope of returning Anglo-Catholics to the faith could not come to fruition in a church becoming more and more polarized into doctrinal factions. And he felt that some of the movements were completely Protestant character, and he wanted nothing to do with it. So in Advent of 1920, he issued a pastoral letter, and he suspended the late Archbishop Matthew's policy of validating the orders of ministers in the Anglican Church. So then there was this proto-uniate constitution in 1925. So I know this is sort of dense for history. You can skip ahead later if you're watching it in replay. But I want to get this all out there because it explains where Archbishop Humphreys came from, right? And I get a lot of questions, so I've never been able to answer it in full. So I'm going to try. Even now it's not going to be in full because it's very complicated. But I'll get most of it out here today. So in 1925, to further confirm that the Old Roman Catholic Church. So remember, Old Roman as distinct than Old Catholic, and we get into it on Twitter sometimes. Father Martin and I. There's these people, oh, you're Old Catholic. Whenever we explain to them, no, we're Old Roman Catholic. Oh, it's the same difference. No, it's not the same difference. Old Romans do not accept Vatican I, and they don't accept the Pope as having universal jurisdiction, whereas Old Roman Catholics do. We say that the Petrum ministry is willed by God and that he's not just a first among equals. He has juridical sort of command and control. And our issues with him now are mostly post-Benedict. It's with the office. It's not, there's some issues, I guess, since Vatican II, of course, but it really became strained after Francis became Pope. or became Bishop of Rome, depending how you understand it. So the thing is that Williams definitely did not desire separation from the Holy See. In 1925, Bishop Williams repudiated the errors of the old Catholics and committed his followers to accepting the decrees of the Council of Trent, the infallible pronouncement of the Immaculate Conception, and the Assumption, the decrees of the First Vatican Council, papal infallibility and primacy. And in 1939, he declared, "We proclaim all pretensions to be in any sense a separate church. We're simply a rite within the Catholic Church." And I think you could arguably say a sub-rite. I mean, it wasn't a distinct rite. It uses the TLM as its primary thing. The only thing that would be a little different is there is allowance under certain circumstances for a vernacular Gregorian Mass. So the lineal descendant of the ancient Church of Britain, he just says the Catholic Church that sent missionaries like St. Willibrord from the British Isles to the Netherlands and the Low Countries, from whence the faith would return after more than a millennium. So Williams, because he just wanted to wind things up, never consecrated another bishop. This wasn't an oversight. It was an intentional policy. He saw the old Roman Catholic Church as a temporary canonical irregularity designed to get Anglicans back in the fold that was valid in orders and orthodox in faith and awaiting Rome's invitation home, which never came. Creating more bishops suggests a permanence rather than a provisional status, and Williams very much thought we were just meant to be a very short-lived movement. However, because the Dutch defected, there were other old Romans that believed, no, we have a reason, because they've abandoned any union with Rome, and we're of their line, and we should carry it on until we can get, these little disputes and everything solved. It was Williams who associated the titular see of Cairglau, the Welsh name for Gloucester, England, with himself and his successors. He sort of applied it to Matthew in Matthew's latter years. Matthew lived with Williams in his late retirement, and they both lived in Gloucester, so that's why they picked that name. The primate bishops of the old Roman Catholic Church, which, after Williams, he repeatedly professed loyalty to the Catholic faith in the Holy See. And so the thing is, under Williams and then later Archbishop Shelley, their portion of the old Roman Catholics was determined to unite in full juridic regularity with Rome. Again, very similar to the plight of Pius X. The Society of Pius X wishes to be in union with Rome. It's so hard. It's so hard. If you look at Catholic Twitter, everybody seems to know more than all the priests and all the bishops and all this business, and they think it's just as easy. Oh, you just submit to Leo. Well, it's not so easy. There's a lot of baggage that goes with that a sincere person might feel is disloyal to God. And instead of just thinking, oh, it's so easy, it's not so easy. And again, I'm happy to talk to anybody about that, including if anyone's on the chat tonight. And, if we do so in a respectful manner, you won't get any flack from me for disagreeing. So the idea was not to create a new church. It wasn't to reject Catholic teaching, but to preserve what Rome herself eventually was abandoning. And while awaiting the day when reunion would be possible under a Catholic pope. And in the 50s, it was more or less decided, well, we don't really have any theological difference. And all these canonical disputes, like, basically saying, hey, we have to hold Rome to the word under Eugene III and all this kind of stuff. And that, it was wrong to do that to the Anglo-Catholics. And these old grievances, the lay people didn't care. It was now approaching, decades, if not centuries in some cases, old disputes. And the lay people didn't care. They just wanted the sacraments. And the need for a distinct old Roman Catholic Church, we weren't, there wasn't a clear indication that God was blessing that mission at that point. It was sort of like, why don't we just encourage everybody to go back to the mainstream? So the decision of how to do it, so we didn't abandon the existing congregations, was they closed the seminary and they announced, we're not ordaining anybody else. No more bishops, no more priests. As each pastor passes away or retires, we'll just close that parish and we'll direct the people to the local mainstream church. And that was in the 50s. At its height, they had about, I heard some people say 80,000. I think 50,000 is probably more realistic. And then what happened was, because again, there was no real doctrinal distinction. There never has been. So the thing is, and no one cares about the canon law wars. I mean, even less than they do now. So when Vatican II happened, it sent a thunder shock throughout the whole church. I mean, there were plenty of people that were quite happy with it, but there were plenty of people that were horrified with it. The old faith and the old mass were under attack. So they reopened the seminary and ordinations recommenced. We saw, there's our mission. So you can see that old Roman Catholicism has had its origin, succession from the one church our Lord Jesus founded. It had self-governance with permission of a pope, similar to our Ukrainian friends' situation. It got embroiled in public battles between Rome and Canterbury, was set to stand down as an independent entity, and then saw the Mass and the Old Faith at threat. And God gave us new purpose. We had a continuity, not born from rebellion, but preservation of the Old Faith. So Archbishop Humphreys has led this portion of the Catholic Church for 40 years. Now think about that, 40 years, from 1984 to 2024, and then a bishop since 1975. Longer than most priests serve at all, and longer than most bishops live after consecration. 40 years of faithful witness. What did Archbishop Humphreys build in all those 40 years? Three thriving parishes under his leadership in Florida. We had chapels everywhere, but again, priests retire, and again, it depends on the need. But right now, we have 3 thriving parishes in Florida and an additional chapel. Young priests are ordained and serving. Growth, especially in Eastern Florida. Stability in unstable time. And it was amazing, his story. When he had no church building, he opened his home. When he had no vestments, he made them with his own hands. When people were in need, he did not ask questions. He simply helped. He paid bills for strangers. He delivered food baskets during the holidays. He made Christmas happen for families who otherwise would not have had one. He memorized much of the breviary. He had this weird gift, an amazing gift. He could memorize poetry. He was an English teacher, but he also memorized the breviary. And I remember he was sick with an aneurysm, going in for an aneurysm surgery. In his recovery, he slept a lot, and I would visit him in the afternoons. And I prayed the breviary aloud with him, and he'd pray in his sleep. And it was so cute because later when I told him, I said, "Boss, holy mackerel, you have the breviary memorized." And he says to me, "What?" He says he didn't remember. He didn't remember that I was praying the breviary with him, but he did it. Even there, he was doing the other half of the psalm. It was pretty weird, but neat. And to the world, he was father, and then bishop, and then archbishop. But he was a spiritual father to so many people, including people outside our jurisdiction. Had friends with a number of Novus Ordo bishops, the Diocese of St. Petersburg. He had correspondence with the then Cardinal Ratzinger, who actually offered him a job, which was kind of funny, before he became Benedict XVI. And there's lots of neat stories like that. And he was just known right across the board. In the days before the permissions for the Latin Mass, 2 Novus Ordo bishops would send their people to him with their blessing, and I guess implied faculties, even from their perspective, because they didn't have a Latin Mass church for them. So that, of course, changed with Benedict. In some senses, Benedict, whom we admired greatly. There's issues with Benedict, as there is with all the post-conciliar popes, but certainly in comparison to the others, he was a breath of fresh air in a sense of unleashing the Latin Mass to the greater Catholic community. But it was funny because his success hurt us in a way, because a lot of people went to the diocese, and then, of course, the diocese would restrict the Mass under Francis. So on November 30th of 2021, on the Feast of St. Andrew, Archbishop Humphreys, along with Bishop Buehler and Bishop Bruska, consecrated me as the 2nd Bishop of Florida, and then he appointed me coadjutor last December. So it's kind of and that because of the nature of our Constitution, there's a balloting process to confirm any kind of succession there. But that's sort of what's been going on and who I am in relation to Archbishop Humphreys. So just as Shelley had consecrated Humphreys, and just as Humphreys had served faithfully for decades, he's passed the torch to that next generation, and the mission, with God's good help, will continue. On January 25th, that's just this past January, Archbishop Humphreys died, having lived nearly a century. He was 93, I believe, and having served nearly 50 years as a bishop. Actually, he made his 50th Jubilee as a bishop, and he and I guess it would be 60 years as a priest or so. And so he built something that would outlast him in honor of the God who blessed and loved him. The General MacArthur of the episcopacy, as we called him, had finally gone home. So to understand Humphreys' life, you need to understand what See of Cariglau is and what it isn't. It's not a Protestant denomination. It's not liberal Catholic. It's not creating a new religion. I mentioned Archbishop Matthew's attempted help with the Anglo-Catholics and his successor as Archbishop of Cariglau. And when Matthew died in 1919, like I say, Bernard Mary Williams, who had this very strong mission of uniting back with Rome, took the reins, and that's very much Archbishop Humphreys. He had several engagements with the mainstream church to regularize, and but when Francis came along, we basically said, well, where Francis goes, we can't follow. And I make no apology for that. I mean, some of you are very fond of Francis watching. God love you. God will sort it out with us when we all meet him again, hopefully with his, with God's good help, we see our Lord, and he'll settle out our differences. But as we see it, Francis taught contrary to the faith. And, you judge by, traditional catechism or the writings of the saints that went before. And it really is interesting that, the friendship with Archbishop Shelley, which was Humphrey's predecessor, with Ottievani, Cardinal Ottievani, is an interesting story. They weren't, Ottievani was not in favor of us being like administratively distinct. I don't think he ever agreed with that, but he loved Shelley, and they walked 4 or 5 times a week in the afternoons before their nap. And they nap apparently in the afternoons in Italy. And that, Ottievani, in a sense, was also a man outside, just like Shelley was. They shut off his microphone and laughed at him during the Second Vatican Council. And this is what John Humphreys inherited: not schism, not rebellion, but preservation. The See of Cariglau maintains all 20 ecumenical doctrinal councils de fide, including the Council of Trent, Vatican I, papal infallibility and primacy, traditional Catholic moral teaching without compromise, valid apostolic succession, and the traditional Roman Mass. And so we're what's, I guess you'd call, canonically irregular, but doctrinally orthodox. We are not in full administrative communion with Rome, not because we reject Catholic teaching, but because Rome from the 60s has increasingly abandoned it. The prophecy of Fulton Sheen and others about an ape church has come true. People within the structures of the Roman Catholic Church, but denying her deposit of faith. And people ask, well, why not just go to a Roman Catholic Church? Because the last 2 bishops of Rome denied the miraculous multiplication of the loaves and the fishes, claims the church doesn't possess the whole truth, bless same-sex unions with fiducia supplicans. And I know there's lots of hair splitting, but it is what it is. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. Allows communion for adulterers and amoris laetitia, participated in Pachamama veneration or worship at the Vatican, systematically attacks the traditional Mass, persecutes the traditional groups, and promotes unchaste and hedonistic themed clergy. It's all over the place. They don't even hide it. Is in communion with the State Church of China and the Abrahamic family house pleasing to God? And it permits sacrilegious communion in the hand. And these are things we just can't agree with. We don't believe it's of God, and you can't obey an unlawful order. So when the Vatican itself contradicts Catholic teaching, what are the faithful Catholics to do? St. Athanasius was excommunicated by valid church authority for defending the Trinity against the Arian heresy. He was canonically irregular, but he was doctrinally orthodox. St. Vincent Ferrer supported an anti-pope for decades. He was canonically irregular, but he was doctrinally orthodox. The church herself and her canonization of these saints judged that truth is more important than administrative unity when unity requires compromising the faith. And in God, that's who judges us. And, it's like they say in the military, if you're going to disobey an order, you better be right, because the consequences are pretty steep. But that's our position. We await reunion with a Catholic Pope, not likely the current one, but a future one, who will restore Catholic teaching. And until then, we preserve the faith intact. Many call themselves Old Roman Catholic. Not all of these are legitimate. Some maintain valid orders and Orthodox teaching. One example being the North American Old Roman Catholic Church under Archbishop Valquez. We maintain friendly relations while having different administrative structures. Others have abandoned Catholic teaching entirely, ordaining women, blessing same-sex unions, denying dogma, incorporating New Age theology, or living in unchaste relationships. These are not all Roman Catholic, no matter what they call themselves. The See of Cariglau is clear about our standards. No ordination of women, no blessing of same-sex unions, no denial of Catholic dogma, no compromise of moral teaching, no clown masses or liturgical abuse, no Pachamama or Mayan rite, and no communism or open borders. So what did Archbishop Humphreys leave behind? Not buildings, though he built churches. Not institutions, though he led one for 40 years. He left behind an example of what it means to be faithful when faithfulness is costly, an example of what it means to preserve the truth when everyone else is compromising, an example of what it means to serve quietly, humbly, without seeking recognition, an example of what it means to be a priest, a bishop, a man of God. And today, those 3 Florida parishes he led continues to thrive. Young priests he ordained continue to serve. Families he shepherded continue to raise their children in the faith. The mission continues. Behold the great high priest, when his days pleased God. Archbishop John Joseph Humphreys lived nearly a century. He served 50 years as a bishop. He touched countless lives as a soldier, as a teacher, as a priest, as a bishop, and as an archbishop. And now he rests. We pray, in the words we prayed at his funeral, that he'll be united with all the priests and bishops who went before him, with all his old friends who love God. May the General MacArthur of the episcopacy, as I used to call him, lead us to our Lord in such a manner that when we hear the same words, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the house of the Father. So, Felix, that was my little tribute to Archbishop Humphreys. Did you get a chance to meet him?
I don't think I ever had a chance to meet him. No, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's been sort of he had a stroke, so he had good days and bad days. And on his good days, he was very, very good. He remembered precise details. He remembered some of my parishioners by name. And then on a bad day, though, you knew it was a bad day, and you couldn't do any business. So I'd see him every week, and I'd say about 3 out of 4 of those weeks, he was able to do some work with me. And then normally what would happen in his after his stroke, for a period of time, he went into an ALF, and then his family took him in because the ALF wasn't doing a very good job with him. But during his time at the ALF, we figured out what was the matter. If he wasn't hydrated, he wasn't able to, think straight or conduct business. It makes sense when you think about it. And good lesson for you that are getting a little elderly, and I guess myself too in my late middle age, especially if you live in a warmer climate. You got to keep hydrated. You don't necessarily feel thirsty, but the hydration goes. So if you're in Florida, drink lots of water. And so, and he really took a downturn the last 6 or 8 months. But God love him. He, what a sweet man. He loved his clergy, and he loved the people he served, and very devoted to the Holy Rosary, very devoted to the breviary. And that stroke was a real letdown for everybody, because he was just such a strong and I used to call him, you know what, I'll tell you a little story about him. I used to call him actually the General Patton of the episcopacy. I just said it as a joke, because I remember, the images. I'm not a great historian, but I just remember a movie about Patton, and he was just, basically he didn't care about crap, he just wanted to win.
Yeah. Basically,
Archbishop just wanted to get stuff done, so he was sort of like when he had to be, he was very determined, and a kindest man in the world, but don't be a weasel and don't be a heretic, basically. And right. The thing is that so I used to call him that, and he just sort of laugh and just sort of shake his head. And then finally he tells me one day, he says, "I don't really like Patton." I said, "Oh, I like MacArthur." So I know even less about MacArthur than I do Patton, but I said, "Okay, boss, you're the MacArthur of the episcopacy."
Right.
But he was such a great character, he just and I had this thing. I have a silly sense of humor. For those of you who know me a little bit more personally, I have a silly sense of humor. I like to laugh, and I like to make other people laugh. And he was a pretty serious man in a lot of respects. And so my little joke with him, or my little goal with him, whenever I had a visit all these years, I would say something that would make him give me this grumpy face, and then he'd burst out laughing. And so that was for me, that was the gold star of my visit. If I could give him a little joy, or something, help him reframe something to see a little bit of light on something that he saw sort of dark or discouraging. So that's pretty well it. And I thank you guys for the patience, because that was kind of a long monologue, but it's I just wanted to get it out there, a little bit of the history, and because some of that information will answer some of your questions that some of you have had, and also just to pay tribute. He was a spiritual dad to me, and not just to me, a whole bunch of people. So I came to, this is another interesting story. I'm going to tell you Humphrey stories now. How I came to the See of Carricklaw was basically through a fellow who used to work, Father John Melnick, who used to work for Ecclesia Dei in the Congregation of Doctrine and Faith in Rome. And he was a very good friend of Archbishop Humphreys. And I mean, very good friend. He would spend all his vacations down here. And so anyway, what happened was Father Melnick recommended me to Archbishop Humphreys, and that's how I came here. But how did Melnick meet Humphreys? Well, how Melnick met Humphreys was that he was working. Now, I don't know whether it was his time with Ecclesia Day or with Fraternity St. Peter to help make a case to Rome. But basically, there was a command to do a project that they wanted a catalog of all of the masses that were being said outside of the administrative regularity of the church to make a case for more liberal permissions to have the Latin Mass again. So in this process of investigating all these groups, Father John met Archbishop Humphreys and learned the whole thing, the whole story I just told you tonight. And Father John used to say, and he was friends with everybody. A bunch of Sedevacantist bishops and Fraternity of St. Peter. He worked with them as a vocations director and as an acting rector for a time. He had friends in the Society of Pius X. He had any kind of traditional group, including a lot of the ones that hit the news now for getting into trouble with the late Francis. He was friends with just about everybody in tradition, and or someone from each of those groups, and he very much saw that we were different organs in a body, but he believed the seer of Cariglau had an important part. I remember Father John saying to me, the succession has to be protected, and he was scared that a lot of the basically there's a safety in having a number of traditional groups, because the problem is they won't come at us, Felix, with a big sledgehammer. Generally what they'll do is they'll just insert more and more things. Like, I'm actually a bit surprised they haven't tried to enforce the Novus Ordo calendar on the traditional orders. They haven't yet, but that's probably coming. They haven't enforced, like, you start, now that they've been instituting females as acolytes, it's only a matter of time before they start pushing them on the traditional regular communities. And people say, oh, that'll never happen. Sure it will. Sure it will. It's only a matter of time. All they have to do is give some of these women faculties to preach. Now you've got female preachers at your traditional mass. Oh, that'll never happen. Listen, have you not paid attention to what's been going on? Look at what happened to the minor orders. Look this stuff up. I mean, I tell people this stuff and they think I'm just making it up. No, look it up. Do your own research and then you'll see, right? So there's a lot of shenanigans coming down the pike. And all I'm saying is, listen, as long as you love our Lord Jesus and you want to, you're trying to serve him the best way that you know how. You and I are friends. We may disagree on details, but if you're going to put institution before fidelity to God, then we have nothing in common, and you can just get off my lawn. And you can insert any adjective or verb or whatever you want that to replace get off my lawn, but whatever makes you do so. The thing is that for people of goodwill, I have all kinds of time, even if we disagree. And you can see that when people respectfully disagree. And that's great. But for the people that are, like, you see it on Twitter. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you see the regular banner I have with certain individuals. And some of them come with a very different attitude. I invite them to read Acts 5 again and then explain to me, they should send us all a little essay, why I'm in communion with the State Church of China, and why I think that I can go to heaven that way. Why do I think I can go to heaven receiving communion in the hand? Oh, that's a great one too, right? Like, what, this is the thing. And it's serious stuff. Offenses to God are far more serious than offenses to man. So it's an inconvenient difference of opinion sometimes, and people are very insecure sometimes with, like, if I'm wrong, like, let's say if you're a person of goodwill and you're part of the Novus Ordo and you're a person of goodwill, then you're going to say, oh, well, I think Mikkel and the others are a little misguided. And, I really think, that they should be in administrative union with Leo. Then what do? You pray for me. And I mean, you're not likely going to change my mind, in the sense that we've already heard so many arguments. Like, there's probably not an argument you're going to make that I haven't heard and answered, right? And I have to answer to God, right? So the thing is, but I mean, you could try. You could just say, well, I see it this way, I see it that way. That's fair. But the thing is that when you come at us with presumption of judgment, and dispensing your own excommunications and your own anathemas with no authority, then you know what? You should go read your own synodal documents, because you know what? The Synodal Church has already surrendered to the Protestants and the Muslims and everything else. So how dare you lecture us on what Catholicity is when you got a Muslim prayer room in the Vatican, right? So I don't want to hear it.
Right.
I don't want to hear it. If you're in communion with the State Church of China, you're not Catholic. How can you be? They took down the crucifixes, put up pictures of dear leader, take down the Stations of the Cross, put up pictures of the Communist Revolution, and you're telling me that they're Catholic because their boss is Leo and I'm not Catholic because I actually believe in the faith that your great-grandmother did? So I get a little irritated at that. Again, anybody you could, and I am 110% in the corner of those people under the Novus Ordo regime who are trying to live their promises of obedience, and because they haven't been asked to do anything un-Catholic, they've decided that God wants them exactly where they are. I'm 110% behind you because I believe that Fulton Sheen was right, that both Catholic and non-Catholic will exist in the institutions. But just realize that all of us, yourself included, we all choose a cost. It's like Thomas Sowell says, it's trade-offs. It's trade-offs. How can you, there's a traditional group that, for political reasons, but it sounded so funny because, I mean, this traditional group is pretty pokey chest in some things. And they asked the local diocesan Bishop Felix, oh, please, may we have your formal portrait for our chapel? And this guy would burn their whole building down if he could. So you're putting his portrait up while he curses you, while you aren't obedient to him. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. But again, and then people will say, well, Mikkel, you got this wrong and this wrong. Okay, fine. We're all on uncharted ground. And a future Catholic Peter, I mean, it could be Leo, I guess, but I rather think it won't be. But someday God's going to either send us a means to get out of this mess, or he's going to wrap it all up because it's not sustainable the way it is right now. It's just not sustainable.
No.
So, Felix, is there any comments or questions or anybody saying hi tonight? Because we started late. I don't know if we have anybody live on or no. Did we?
No, we got some people in. They're coming in. It started a little light. Yeah,
I hope you missed for those who are alive right now. I hope you missed the boring part.
Yeah, right.
I had to get it all out, but I wanted just to have that.
No. Hey, yeah, we got that out the way. Now we can do the Bad Bunny Super Bowl. We can do the Epstein drop.
Okay, guys, guys, I can say something nice about practically everybody. So I'm going to say something nice about Bad Bunny. You ready for this?
Oh wow! Oh no!
Okay, here we go. You got a drum roll. You got a drum roll sound effect, Felix?
Hold on. I think I can. Oh, I got something close.
Okay, let it go.
No, okay. That's about it.
Okay.
I was gonna wait till after you said it.
Okay. All right, guys. So here it is. Okay, so Bad Bunny. I can say this good about Bad Bunny. What a great name! Because when you think about it, he's bad both in behavior and in character.
That's right.
That's my good thing. I can say about Bad Bunny. And I'll tell you, I didn't watch the show, Felix, but I did see clips.
No.
So I saw clips of both Super Bowl halftime shows. And I saw one clip, the praise of the holy name. And the other clip I saw, I think you call it twerking.
Wow. Wait a minute. So
I saw very raunch. I'm just what else?
Yeah, but wait, I'm sorry.
You know,
I mean, they named the holy name. What was that? They praise the holy name.
Yeah, and the Kid Rock. I don't know if he can.
Oh, you're talking about the TPUSA halftime.
Yeah, there was two halftime shows.
There was dueling halftimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think it's got 20 million views now.
Yeah, that would be
something like 6 million or 8 million live or something like that, and then 20 million in the replay.
Yeah, I'm look. First off, I'll put it all out there. I'm kind of over TPUSA. I mean, like it's kind of crazy what's going on with the. That being said, they at least figured out common sense who needs to be in the Super Bowl halftime show. All right, and I get like this is kind of not getting away from what we're supposed to be talking about here, but just I wrapped my head around it. And I was telling Lyra, like, listen, this is what the problem is. You getting rappers and singers and all this who have no band behind them. So now you're getting just idiots dancing around one person who's singing. And I think that's one of the reasons why they use that to incorporate all the satanic imagery. And I mean, there's all of that going on during the Super Bowl too. That's almost on. I used to watch it for the football. Then I used to watch it for the commercials. And then
Right.
I was like watching, I was like, I wonder how they're going to try to brainwash us with this Illuminati sub messaging. Every single Super Bowl halftime show, there's some sort of weird something going on, and it's
Well,
just like,
now
you
you
know,
might know more than me on this, but my understanding is the Olympics had a bunch of weird Luciferian stuff.
yes,
Yeah, but
yes,
they
yes,
do that all the time. They slip that stuff in there. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
the world is kind of going into a spiral here, folks. Right? So
Is it wrong for me to wish that, like, next time something like that happens, that people kind of like rush the stage, and you know what I mean, like just it have enough. Enough is enough. You know, like, and again, I'm not calling for violence. I want to be very clear.
right.
I'm not calling for anything like that. However, all right, because I realize I'm dancing a fine line
I'm
here.
not calling for it. However,
Yeah, however, I realize I'm dancing a fine line here. I feel like I'm dancing a fine line here
you're
because,
going to get us in trouble, Felix.
all right, but here's my rationale.
All
When
right.
they're doing those things, whether it's actually happening or not, they believe, in my heart of hearts, they believe that they're doing a ritual to have some sort of power over us. They're
Okay.
casting some sort of magic rite over the adoring fans over that, and kind of like,
So, do you think that it's the planners that are doing this, or some of the participants? Like,
all of the
what's
above,
your,
all of the above. After the Epstein dump or whatever, these guys are all, I like no quarter. I'm done. I'm
yeah?
like, so maybe we can count on one hand a politician or celebrity that might be a good egg, but I'm done. I am.
You know, I gotta tell you, I'm not very. I don't know if purient is the word to say here, or like I really have no curiosity or desire to see what the depravity Epstein was into. And then I was on Twitter, and unfortunately, people have shared the
Oh,
images,
it's just, yeah, it's just getting dumped
and
on us whether we want to
it,
or not.
it's far worse than I thought it was.
Yeah,
So I mean, yeah, it scandalized me a little bit, or yeah, it's my problem is that I really think that the supposed good guys have been hiding this guy, right? So
yeah.
we've got
Well,
some issues. We got some issues
I
for
just
sure.
need to hear 5 words from you, Father.
What's that?
Alex Jones was right again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? Love or hate Alex Jones, the guy's right a lot of the time. You know, I
Yeah,
used to think he was just a crazy man. Like
so did
he
I.
just because he just just sort of hollers at the screen and
Yeah, he speaks in a
I
lot
get
of hyperbole.
yeah, but you know what? His predictions are right a lot of the time, which makes me wonder who gives him his info. But he's certainly well networked, and he's not scared. I mean, it's a wonder. I guess God must be protecting him or something, in the sense that the stuff he's exposed and predicted. People have disappeared or ended up in accidents for far less.
Yeah, no, he's a warrior for truth. I mean, he's not Catholic, I don't think, but I know he is God fearing and Christ fearing. At least, I think
Yep.
he's one of those definitions of people who are seeking the real, true, and good. I do not agree with everything he says. There's some
Right.
views on Israel that I think we disagree on. But he again, yeah, he is going for the real, true, and good, and he was saying this stuff, and a lot of us were beating that drum. No, this is really happening. A lot of this
Yep.
evidence is really coming out now. Now, this is what the problem is. My my view is that all of this, what we got was a 3 million page dump, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
it's a bunch of real stuff and a bunch of nonsense. And they
Right.
purposely released it all together the way they did at once, and it's one big hodgepodge, because they are going to do everything they can to avoid some sort of prosecution. Which, again, at what point is wishing some sort of like something to happen here? Because there's a lot of people who are feeling like, I can only imagine me. I'm an older man, lower testosterone than usual. I can only imagine a 25 or 30-year-old, someone on the righteous path, seeing this on the news. There's gotta be people here just boiling. You know what I mean? With some sort of, and in my opinion, righteous rage. So I mean, I don't know, because this
Well,
this
I
can
think
this can go overboard really
I
really bad.
I've spoken and written about this subject at length over the last 10 years, and that is that people are losing trust in the institutions that are supposed to protect us. So, and that seems across the board, and that's not just an American thing. That's a Western, at least a Western civilization thing. And so the whole, I guess, promise of the anti-left alliance that was called MAGA, you know, they're falling short amongst what a lot of people want to see. Now, whether that continues to be so or not, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, this whole uniparty, this whole war against the ordinary person has got to stop. And the logical institution to stand up in favor of the ordinary person is the church. And unfortunately, the mainstream postmodern Christianity is wholly bought, paid for, and compromised. It just is. It's what isn't gay is heretical, and
Yeah.
it just is what it is. I know I'd love to tell you something different. I'd love to tell you something different, and
Well,
but it
there w-
just is. And so sometimes I feel like I'm Don Quixote chasing the windmill, right? And people are like, "Why is that crazy man charging a windmill?" Well, if you know the character of Don Quixote, you know why. The charge is noble, but it's also, of the flesh, it's futile. So, we're going to need God's help. I come back to it.
yeah.
My friend Father Martin and I have a disagreement on this. And I say that I hope that there's a divine illumination. And he just says, well, it's too easy,
Well,
because he's sort of like a new dark age coming and everything. I don't think we have enough time. I really
no,
think it's so bad, guys, that I think it's not like the fall of the Roman Empire. And by the way, that's not what's happening. We're
no.
probably more like the Republic turning into the Empire than the fall of the Empire at this point.
Good Star Wars reference. Okay. But
No, actually, it was Roman Empire, but they're based on, the story is based. Yeah,
oh,
sure.
okay.
Well, I mean,
I was
look at
confused.
I think that Pluribus and his theory of what they call anacyclosis. So anacyclosis is basically the cycle of where democracy morphs into mob rule, and it needs a strong man to restore it, and then it goes into
Yeah.
oligarchy and then democracy again, right? So basically the reason why there's that cycle is because the supposed democratic structures, which of course, democracy, what they say in Canada and France, is not what the average American thinks is democracy. It's totally different defined, But the thing is that what happens is that if the people that make the laws and make the decisions have the power to pay themselves and to make deals for themselves, then it's only
Yeah.
a matter of time, right, before
Yeah.
the wheels fall off the wagon. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a political scientist to see that. And the same way with the church. I mean, the church rightly should have a certain amount of ability and freedom to work its mission in justice to God's mission. But the problem is that when the church leadership is so blatantly corrupt and they don't even hide it, and they become politically aligned with globalists and Marxists and syncretists and Luciferians, I mean, jeepers, and then people have the audacity, like I say, to say someone like Felix and I are somehow outside what God wants us in the church. It's like, give us a break.
Like,
We're not
stop. Yeah. What are
we're
you
not
talking about?
complicit. We're not complicit with this crap.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
what do we, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You finish your thought, Father. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. There enough.
My
Fair.
thought is
Cheers.
beer. I'm really.
Yeah. Cheers. I, yeah. But
I
all
had
right.
someone complain. That I drink beer. I only do it on the Tuesday night live, and the Tuesday night live is meant to be us shooting the breeze in our living room. It's not meant
That's
to
right.
be, formal. So I am what I am. I joke. I say I'm like Popeye the Sailor. Those of you who are old enough to remember Popeye the Sailor, that was his motto. I am what I am. And the difference between Popeye and me is that you substitute the spinach for Guinness.
That's right. Now, hey,
Right.
one is actually better than the other, and I might make the argument that it might be Guinness. But
Right.
again, like this is where we
No
get,
Guinness today.
like this is my where how you talk about squaring or circles. There is an obedience. Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. I understand.
Right.
At what point are we rendering onto Lucifer? What is Lucifer's? You know what I mean? And instead of rendering onto Caesar, what is? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, are
Yeah, I
we?
mean, there's certain things that I'm a little.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
just
gonna get.
I keep coming back to, and I gotta say, it's one of these things that's going to sound really silly, but give me some leash. And that is, I think C.S. Lewis saw something that basically he wrote in the Chronicles of Narnia. Like basically, book 2 is purely a children's book, but the rest were Christian allegory, right? Whereas, I mean, some of book 2 is Christian allegory too, but I mean,
Sure.
he really was trying to convey something he observed. And one of the things he observed in book 6 is called the silver chair. And that's the era we're living in right now. And the silver chair is the suppression of true information, and everybody's numb. So,
Right.
I mean, you look at how the media reports on anything that you happen to know. Like if you were actually at an event and then you see the media report on it afterwards, you see how much the skew really is.
Right.
And you see how deceitful the legacy media is, and they're really awful. They're awful people, and they're awful organizations, and there's very few exceptions to that rule, and it's the exceptions that prove that rule. If it wasn't for Twitter X, if it wasn't for YouTube to a lesser extent, and to Rumble and BitChute and places like this, none of us would know anything.
Yeah. So I almost forgot this thought. This is to what you were just saying a few seconds ago. I think you're being somewhat vindicated. I think we are under a bit of a divine illumination. All of this may seem like a trauma dump, in a certain degree. There's 3 million pages. I think we're gonna have to sift through like the nonsense and the legitimate cases in there. But again, they're throwing those in there. Again, it's like they don't want us to know that they're satanic PDF files. And I mean, like, we're kind of like at this, I don't care how much misinformation you try to throw at us. Like, you're not going to try to, I'm going to find it very hard to convince that all of this was like all of these were just smear tactics and smear techniques. And everyone's actually innocent. And, you know what I mean? And this is all just hearsay. 3 million pages of hearsay.
Well, do you think he's still alive, or do you think he? Yeah, because I mean, it's funny that people are saying that like there's apparently some sort of online username that he used to use that's now active now. I mean, someone else is supposed to be using.
Oh, I can explain that a little bit. All right, so apparently Fortnite, he had a Fortnite account.
Okay.
He had a Fortnite
for our audience who doesn't know, and I know of it, I've never even seen it, but can you tell everybody what that is, Felix?
Fortnite is a video game that, a player versus player video game. So it's almost like teams versus, whatever, and you need to create an online account. And he had one called Littlest Jeff or something like that. And it was active. So this is where it gets weird. It was active a week after he was considered dead. The only time that it was inactive was the time he was in jail.
Okay.
And there's even pictures. They're trying to say it's AI. I mean, I think they can probably take a real picture and then pass it through an AI filter, and then there you go. It's now discredited. But I'm not 100% convinced he's alive. But if it came out in the news that they found him tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, what? You know what I mean?
No, I think you have my attitude. I don't think he necessarily is, but I will say this is that nothing surprises me anymore.
Will surprise me, yeah. I'm telling you, the Earth could be flat. I'm at this point, it's all on the table for me. I'm telling you, the moon landing, it's all on the table.
It won't be the Truman Show. It'll be the Felix Show. We find it.
The Felix Show.
Felix has been a spectacle for someone in the 24th century.
Oh no, yeah. They would have canceled my movie like maybe halfway through. It was like, this is boring, Felix. All right, the audience doesn't want to watch you play Skyrim for the 500th hour. No,
you know what's funny? Okay, I'm fighting with my microphone here. If you guys are wondering,
I can tell.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like. So I got a new setup. You guys might notice the camera angle is a little different, and I'm just trying to get everything tamed. And part of the reason why we started late, and actually I should explain to everybody that too. I apologize for our late start. I've been working on this all day, like since, well, not all day, since 10 this morning. And I was just like, man, I'm still going to be late.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I think we finally got it sort of going. I'm just trying to tame the
I have a
equipment.
video that I'd like for you to react to. Then that ties into this. Would you
Okay.
like to see the comments first?
Sure. I'm
Or
going to turn this way so I can view it.
oh, okay. You want to see the video first? All right, do that. Then we'll do the comments. Let me share the screen. All right. This is Jim Brewer.
Yep.
All right. Are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
We will get to your comments in soon after this, guys. But definitely, I want you to check this out. So Jim Brewer is a stand-up comic. Actually saw him in Tampa not too long ago. He's really funny. He was most famous from a movie in the 90s called Half Baked with Dave Chappelle, where he plays a stoner.
Right.
And he was also Goat Boy on Saturday Night Live.
Mhm.
You know, if you remember that. But anyway, this is
speaking of the Matrix. I'm not touching the files. I'm not touching the Epstein files.
I apologize in advance if there's any foul language, but I'm 99% sure that there isn't any.
Okay, good.
And
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Everyone and their mother, you haven't seen nothing yet. That's number one. And this is all part of the circus. Why are they releasing part of it, not all of it? You know how many of these images that I saw personally many years ago? And you know how many times I sat there and I watched people watching certain TV shows and have a clueless. Like my kids will watch TV. They used to watch Ellen DeGeneres, right? And I'd go, you ever notice, I go, you know what Epstein's Island? You ever notice her background set looks just like the island? And they're like, Dad, you're such a conspiracy theorist. Every conspiracy theorist out there right now, all I'm going to say is, if you never believed in them, you better start talking to them, because the ones that already knew about this, I'm telling you right now, this is just wave number one. I don't know what they got lined up, but I'll tell you this. You okay over there? I'm just going to tell you this. From my standpoint, I've been praying to God for a very long time that humanity will start to be aware of this, no matter how horrifying it's going to be. In my honest opinion, it's about time that some humanity understands pure demonic evil truly exists, and it's in your society, and it's your politicians, left, right, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, all of them. They're not your heroes. They're not your heroes. You're rock stars. You're not your heroes. You're athletes, the owners. You haven't seen this is you're just getting the tip of an iceberg. And I'm not sure if some of you are ready for what's about to come. And this is what gets exhausting sometimes when you know this and you tell it to people, and because they don't want to, they ask and they don't want to hear that information after they ask it because it's too much for them. They'll lash out at you and they'll call you a name, or they'll call you a whack job, or they'll call you a conspiracy, or a stoner, or you're just whatever they want to call you. You know what it's like seeing tweets? You know, years ago, I'd see certain comedians.
Okay. Oh, Felix, we just pause for a sec. So actually, we probably should.
Yeah.
We probably should actually.
Yeah,
just so we don't get in trouble with copyright. I keep forgetting, you know, it's like I wouldn't care if anybody wanted to use any of my YouTube stuff, but again, especially if the guy gets paid for it, just trying to respect his work.
Yeah. No, we could comment on it for sure. So yeah, where are you at so far on this?
Well, I guess the thing is that I've definitely been talking the last 10 years about our institutions have all failed us in their duty of care. Okay, that goes from medical, education, church, police. It doesn't mean everybody's bad. It just means that the institutions themselves are not policing their bad eggs. They're hiding their bad eggs. They're not policing their bad eggs. And what's worse, they persecute the people that try to make the organization better. So when I look at, the number of good seminarians that are tossed out of seminaries, and they're tossed, for a bunch of trumped up reasons very often, and
Right.
or they're not accepted in the first place. And instead you get the morally compromised individuals and the like. And again, there's great exceptions, but it's a problem. The same with some police forces um, are very ethical. Some police forces are not, right? So I mean, it's across the board. And then unfortunately, we have the scourge of DEI, which the exception proves the rule. And I feel bad for anybody who is hired under that that's actually competent, because of course everybody's looking
Sure.
at you. Oh yeah, we know why you're in that position. Meanwhile, they could be wonderful, right? But
Yeah.
the sad part of it is, look at the air traffic control incidents. There's a reason for it. Look, if you
Yeah.
graft all the air traffic control incidents and you overlay it with DEI hire, I think you're going to see a correlation. I think it's pretty clear.
Well, no, yeah, that's actually, I think, pretty much been substantiated. The firefights, the fires, and if you remember the California fires, all you had were like these lesbian fire chiefs. You know what I mean? Blaming people for getting stuck in the fire. It's a 40 in the 40s. So what do you do when if a 40-year-old man is in a room in a burning building? Well, we'd have to. Her quote was, "Well, I guess we'd have to figure out why he would be in a burning room to begin with." Like, I mean,
It's the same people that don't know what a woman is,
right?
right? And yet they'll
Yeah.
they'll yeah, we're going to ponder the philosophy of, why is this guy here in the burning building?
So this is all by design. I think this is this is the pill that people need to start waking up. And there's more to this video, by the way, that I think you'll find fascinating. But
Yeah, so we'll just try to, if there's something that you want to specifically
oh,
highlight, let's break it up a little bit.
okay.
And
Let me skip
before we
ahead a little bit so we don't absorb the whole video.
well, why don't we go through a couple comments, and actually then you can probably mute yourself and you can go find a couple clips while I talk. We can multitask. I'll answer a question or two while you
preset this.
preset it
Okay,
up.
all right,
Or whatever you think.
Let's see.
I'm
Let's
flexible.
see.
So,
All right, got
and by the way, I moved the camera around because you see, I've got my little tuxedo cat assistant here. He's you can just sort of see his butt in your screen. On my preview screen, I see the whole cat, but I'm just waiting for him to come launching at Cords or something. He already took out a monitor a couple weeks ago. One of our delays was due to a cat attack.
Cat attack, right? Catatage.
I keep warning it. I keep warning him. He can be made into mittens, but I like him too much for that. And we have, would you believe, 3 of our clergy have tuxedo cats by weird coincidence. So there you go.
Yeah. So all right. So as we got Father Hagen said, "God bless all of you. My condolences."
Well, hello, Father Haygood. Thank you so much.
He goes. He also says, "I've been catching hell for my incarnation of Father Calvin Robinson all week. I feel you on so many levels."
Yeah, unfortunately, as Bishop Haygood and I can both tell you all, even a priest or deacon to an extent, but especially a bishop, everything we do is a political act, whether we want it to or not. And especially if you're not a political person or you sometimes step in it, right? So, like, for example, if I just want to have a coffee with somebody because I'm concerned about them or I care about them, well, ordinarily that shouldn't be a big deal, right? Like if you were a bank manager and you had coffee with a friend who's a mechanic who just got out of jail or something, well, that's not a big deal necessarily. But it's funny, especially in church circles, everything we do, just even favors or kindnesses. Do you guys see that on the screen? You can't know what you're seeing. I got the cat climbing up side of the side of the chair. But anyway, no, but I mean, so yeah, I hear you. So Father Robinson, for those of you who don't know, he used to be on GB News, so he was sort of famous over in the UK. It's GB News is like Fox News for the UK, and he was an excellent commentator. Still is an excellent commentator, and he serves a parish, I believe, in Michigan, and that's now under Bishop Haygood's care. And Catholic Twitter is giving him a hard time. So, I mean, Father Robinson's been interviewed by Taylor Marshall and I think Matt Fradd and a bunch of these. He's been, at events with Bishop Strickland, and essentially given, some engagement and some platform from traditional friendly and traditional Catholic, both clergy and news. But when he doesn't go their way, then all heck breaks loose, and especially amongst the lay faithful in particular, and including some clergy friends turned on him over his choice. And I mean, these things are complicated, and the reasons are between his bishop and God, and his parish, and all the different factors that go into it. But I wish only that God's will be done, and his blessing be on every good work. And I just don't understand why people have to be negative. You could, even if you disagree with Bishop Haygood or me or Father Robinson, all you have to do is pray for us, right? You just pray for us. This notion, this Pharisaic, it's Pharisaic and parasitic. They get on social media, and everybody knows more than people with the three munera. So I don't know. It gets a little frustrating, and I was very disappointed to see people that would have been very friendly to Father Calvin turn on him like that. But our Lord had Judas, and it is what it is. So I don't know. I don't know if Father Haygood has anything more to say about that, but that's sort of my thought. And I wish Father Calvin every success.
All right, Father Norm. Hey, Norm. By the way, he says, Bishop Meikle, I appreciate your experience with Archbishop Humphreys and your personal experience, understanding an overview of his life. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Norm. Again, it was one of these things that it was a little long-winded, but he lived almost a century.
Hey, so it's actually probably short. If we're really being honest.
I mean, there's so many things I could tell you about him. He was a very interesting man. He helped a lot. He was an encouragement to a lot of people in the mainstream church. He really loved any priest, and as long as you held the Catholic moral praxis, he got discouraged in his later years of ministry because he encountered a whole bunch of priests and bishops he stuck on pedestals, and he found out a lot of them had these double lives. And I don't really know why he didn't pick up on it earlier. Maybe it was just the internet age just made a lot of this stuff more accessible. But it really kind of took him off his rails a little bit. He used to have this big stack of mail sitting on his fireplace, and it used to irritate me because I'd be in there and I'd know it was from all this various clergy in different jurisdictions, and he just wouldn't answer them. He wouldn't even open the letter. And I was his chancellor for many years, and I said to him, "Hey, boss, why don't you let me craft a boilerplate acknowledgement of the letter, and we'll just see what they're up to, and politely tell them to go away." He wouldn't even let me open the letter. He'd say, "Father, stay away from those crazy people." And I was wondering, what's he going on about? And then I found out, it was all this stuff. Because when I found out on my own and I asked him about it, he had talked to me about it, but he never, ever, ever spoke ill of people if there wasn't a need to, ever. So, I mean, God love him. He's a good lesson for not engaging in detraction. He never spoke, and there was some serious things. But I mean, that's why he just says his way of keeping everybody safe was we weren't allowed to talk to a whole bunch of clergy. And then it created some weird situations because I was getting letters and email from other individuals, and I couldn't answer them. And people were, "Oh, Meikle's arrogant. He thinks he's better than everybody. He won't answer my email." No, I was under obedience not to. So, but anyway, when the Archbishop passed, I was able to answer some of this stuff and just basically say, "Hey, it wasn't anything personal. It was just Humphreys felt it best to protect the church by he believed that it's best for us just to stay clear and politely as you can ignore some of these other groups than say anything bad about them." And so I don't know. I'm more of the school of thought that sunlight's the best disinfectant, and I'd rather.
We're about to put that to the test with what's going on.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, see, I'm not. I'm not going to go out of my way to be mean or say something nasty about anybody, but I just, by the same token, I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to help cover for them either if they've been into stuff that's not good. So, yeah, I promise by the time next week comes around, I'll figure out a solution to my microphone dilemma here.
Is it not holding? Is it just keeps going
Well,
down?
in the previous setup, I could shorten the arm, and physics being what it is, that when I had to lengthen the arm, it's a heavy microphone, so it pulls down the arm. There's not enough friction on the little knobby thing. So I'll take a look at it. I'll see if I can jury rig something or put a little stick under it or something.
Gotcha. So Father Hager said best bishop joke of 2026. I guess that was your Bad Bunny joke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Oh God, let me know. Yeah, we might be in
Paramount.
bed now. I don't know. Well, actually, when you think about it,
No, he's still up.
when you think about it, we're normally wrapping up at 11, so we'll just go a little longer. But yeah, by all means, thank you for coming out, and I appreciate the fact. I was a little scared at the beginning because when we started, it was zero viewers. And
for a while too, right?
And we normally have a little bit more. Like we normally have 15, 20, 30, something like that, but we kept it pretty low tonight. But I started so late, and again, I apologize.
Yeah. But it's fine. It's what it is. Yeah, and people will end up seeing it regardless. So yeah, no, Father Hager says I didn't bother with the Super Bowl or the Olympics. It's time to set up Christian alternatives. Amen. I also did not bother with the Super Bowl and the Olympics. And let me put it this way. Me, I don't want to say diehard, but I was a kind of a big fan of the NFL for, growing up, Giants fan, and I'll tell you what, I didn't even know it was Super Bowl Sunday until the day after.
Wow.
That is bizarre. Like before I would at least, even like previous years, I would kind of begrudgingly watch the Super Bowl.
I wasn't brought up with, into football that much, but
right.
I got into it. I got into it around year, say.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Father.
Yeah, there's a lag.
Okay, I can kind of hear you now.
Yeah, so I was going to say I wasn't brought up with football per se, but I got into it a little bit in from say year 2005 till I started taking the knee, and then when they started taking the knee, I wouldn't watch it ever again.
I kind of stopped. Yeah, I stopped at the knee, and then COVID was the last straw, because then they started putting the fake people in the stands, and I'm like, oh no!
Did they do
just
that? Really?
Felt this. You don't remember that? They were put. Oh my Father! They were doing virtual tickets where you could buy a ticket and you could watch it from your home, and they set up like a little camera at the seat where you purchased your ticket from. They would put pictures of stands. They would do fake crowd noises for the players, because let me tell you, you saw the work in progress of how cringe it was, because first off, they're playing in an empty stadium. There's like no energy in the game at all. There's no crowd noise. There's nothing. And then when they try to simulate it, it just looked worse. It was just, hey, you know what? And I didn't feel an inch sorry for them. I was like, enjoy your paradise. Enjoy the paradise you've made for yourselves, where you're going to try to fake interact. It was just so disgusting. It was dystopian, like every sense of the word. That's crazy. So now I didn't bother with it either, Father Hager. I'm so checked out. Any type of sport, I'm checked out. Thank you, Felix, for bringing some laughter to the mix. Hey, I'll be here all week. No, I'm sure it's your waitress.
That's right.
Father Haygood says, I think we have more time than we actually think. Truthfully, I think he was speaking to your point, like about the divine illumination.
Yeah, things could wrap up. Yeah, I just don't
think so too.
I'll tell you why. I mean, and this is great. I love debates about this kind of stuff, right? Because this is like, what do any of us know, right? We all have various educated guesses, but But the thing is, I'll tell you my rationale. My rationale is that now my Sadie friends would say that it really started, in the 60s more earnestly. I would say that, yeah, I would agree that it started in the 60s, but it really started to ramp up and say after the reign of Francis in 2013. The church never taught error before, and it's been teaching error. So this is part of the problem, is that we've never had to deal with that before. I mean, there's been difficulties. There's been development of doctrine that's legitimate. There's
Right.
been debates like on usury and stuff, but we never really had, like, if you read Pascendi, then you compare it to Vatican II, basically everything that was condemned was now embraced. So we have a real square circle, and
Yeah.
most people just don't read this stuff. And I used to get a kick out of Francis, so I got to give a compliment to Leo. So I gave a compliment to Bad Bunny, so you're going to get a Leo the 14th compliment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically the same person. Yeah, here we
No,
go.
no, well, I didn't say that.
I'm
No,
kidding. I'm
no,
kidding.
but here's my
100%.
compliment for Leo. Bad Felix.
Forgive me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but here's my Leo 14th compliment. So when he at least when he has an idea, he does seek corroboration with the pre-1960 church.
Oh, okay.
So a critic might say, well, he's kind of just proof texting. Well, whatever. We all do it to a degree. I mean, we look for reference. I mean, hopefully it's the old stuff that informs your opinion, but there is a certain amount of, like, when I write, for example, then I search for, like, I remember stuff, but I don't remember where it came from. So then I go on a search where it came from so I can put some
Right.
notes in. So
Right.
in a certain sense, that's kind of a proof text, I guess, or, not in the, when people use it as pejorative, but you got to try to basically trying to remember where I got this stuff so that you guys know I don't just make it up, right? So anyway, there's that. And then Leo, to his credit, he or whoever he does his writing, and then he orders them to do it. They'd make some effort of making some appeal to pre-1960 Catholicism. Now, Francis was hilarious because Francis would only quote Vatican II and more often himself. So I never knew anybody who would quote himself as much as Francis, and that was always, it was kind of in your face, right? Like, this is the Church of Francis. This wasn't the Catholic Church. This wasn't the, this was a Church of Bergoglio. And so and again, my Sadie friends would say that it started earlier, but however, wherever we want to say it went off the rails, there's fewer and fewer that are aware, that are informed, that can defend what happened in the era of Francis. So now everybody, I get a kick out. All these people are, oh, Leo's not like Francis, and they're like, I saw a Catholic journalist who, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but anyway, he's on there and he's trying to make a distinction between Leo and Bergoglians. And I'm like, dude, like, don't you realize Leo himself said he was continuing the program? So why don't you take him at his word? So people are right now in a position where they just want to hear what they want to hear. And they basically are looking for their faith to be a comfort primarily, rather than serve the first commandment primarily. And your comfort is way down on the list of what you're supposed to get out of your faith. So, yes, I hope you're comfortable in the sense that you trust in God, and you have the joy that comes knowing that God has the bigger picture in hand and he has your soul in hand. That's great. But this reinvention or rewriting of history, or seeing the world just as you see and no one else sees it, it's like, anyway, it's just very discouraging sometimes, because you count it on these very same journalists. The very same journalists who used to call out Francis have now drunk the Kool-Aid. And, because the guy wears nice vestments, you're going to say, oh, well, he doesn't believe like Francis. Look what he says about open borders. Look what he says about, and then he says one thing one day and then another thing another day. And his bishops are completely out of control. His appointments are almost all hedonists or pro-hedonism. His political contacts are all leftists, all globalists. I don't think he has a single friend that any of us would call a conservative from a 1990s definition. So who the heck is this guy anyway? And who is he working for?
Right.
Because I don't think we share the same king. Now, that's my opinion. And, you guys are free to disagree with me, but instead of flaming me, why don't you give me some evidence to prove me wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
Imagine that. All right. I'm gonna play this one, and then I'll actually play a little bit more of this clip because I think this ties in.
You want to finish Norm first?
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. I'll do Norm's first. And so he says, for me, it seems to be a revolutionary time, but it will be like a French Revolution or more like an American Revolution, honoring mob rule or honoring individual sanctity and responsibility. Right.
Yeah, it could go either way. It could go either way, couldn't it? I mean, it's either going to be guillotines like the French,
Yeah,
or
that's
it's gonna
bad.
be, yeah, they're literally talking about setting them up, right? And it's it's at the point where if you're on the conservative side of things, you realize like we can't let you people have power again, right? Because you're gonna be evil. Like it's not an issue of, I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's more than one character.
It's the solution.
Yeah,
it's the solution. This is what's is so evasive, and it's like, because it's like, all right, do we just trust in God? Okay, good, we get that part. How do we trust in God in this situation? Or is God trusting us to make the right decision? Are we supposed to just remain quiet and wait for his some sort of instruction? It gets crazy.
We looked at the saints for the answer, right? And I'd say in this case we have St. James Matamoros and we have Joan of Arc. We have Albigensian Crusade. We have a history of, we have the Book of Joshua. So yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, it boils down to there's a time to go meek, and there's a time to go bold.
Yeah.
And, we're the last real Christian country standing, and that's why the stakes are so high. And so, not to say that the world can't re-Christianize again, it can. The power of the internet and all this Starlink and all this kind of stuff, the same kind of tech that's been used to de-evangelize can evangelize. One of the biggest things, if you guys want if you want a lab experiment on the malleability of the human mind in groups, just look at the country of Canada. It is absolutely barking mad. It makes the Dutch tulip crisis of the 1600s look like kindergarten. The people, by and large, are completely brainwashed by state-funded media. It's absolutely insane. Look at it's really bad. Like, normally, I really appreciate friends of mine who are lefty of goodwill, and they'll sit and they'll debate and they'll maybe dispute different, interpretations of certain events, but you're still dealing in the same real world. These people are barking mad. They have a leader whose 90% of his investments are in a country other than his own. He hasn't lived there in 15 years. When he retires, he's not going to live there. He's going to let them implode. He's going to run away. He'll be safe. His family will be safe. Meanwhile, they just have TDS, and the whole country has gone completely nuts. And all they have to do is just behave like sane people of 1990 or whatever. In other words, the same reality we all shared back then, and you'd be fine. But they're all barking, and they think money comes from unicorn butts. Like, of course, they have no revenue. They have no revenue.
Just make more money.
If you look at the top companies in Canada, they're all banks with businesses all over the world. They have no business. They're not investing in Canada.
Yeah.
And so all that has to happen is if they have any real competition in their finance sector, they're all done. They're all done. Yeah. Just give it up. Like, wrap it up. Alberta, Saskatchewan, that's it. Save those provinces. The rest is going to swirl down the drain.
New York, New York is going to do that. All right, it's kind of going through the same thing. All right, so let me say, I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here. I want you to see some more of this here.
About left and the right,
and I sped it up a little bit.
The Muslims, and it's all just well planned, designed to take your morality out of you. You better get right with God, man. That's your only hope. I don't care what you said. And I'm not religious. I'm not what you call born again. I'm telling you, you better get right with God, love, consciousness, whatever it is, because you have no clue what's on the way. And until you tap out of this madness of watching the television, and did anyone watch the Oscars? Was it the Oscars? What was on? Did anyone watch the Grammys? Why? Why? Who's sitting there? I'm so glad they won an award. Is there seriously something wrong with you? Wait. Oh my God. What
And I'm going to speak a little
if
bit
you were
more.
to ask me, and I'm not saying you should do this, how do you stop this whole system? What drives it? Money.
Yeah, just pause them there
Money.
for a sec, Felix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just keep the pauses frequent. So one of the things he said there that was kind of interesting is when he talks about going to the Grammys, as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't watch any award show unless Ricky Gervais hosts it.
Ricky Gervais, that he's awesome. And he was calling him out for the Epstein stuff. If you remember, one of his famous things.
Pay taxes. Don't pay taxes.
This is where this is what I want you to like. This is what I'm seeing around the corner.
All right.
All right, and we can actually stop right there. All right, so this is what's going to start creep. This is my prediction that this is going to be the sentiment that is going to start growing. Why pay taxes? Would you give money to a person who is going to harm children? You know what I mean? And then
it's one of these things. If you start right, like you better be right, because it's like I'll tell you, governments are not very sympathetic to people who opt out of that. And
that's the truth.
So there's that. And then the second thing I'd say is funny you should mention that, because if you guys Google Richmond, BC, okay, and the native land claims there, so you got all these silly Canadians. One of their even their police, when they do a briefing, like there's a missing child, they always start with a land acknowledgement. Well, finally the natives got smart to realize, hey, you know what? We're since they are acknowledging and they don't own it, we're going to take it.
Yeah.
So sure enough, the courts awarded a lot of land. People already owned factories, and there's a big Amazon plant and everything there, I think, and houses and everything. So now no one has clear title. So now every property has to be like how you sell something like that. It's going to be 10 years of court just to sell a property. And then the people, to your point, Felix, about tax, the people are saying, well, if I don't own my land, I don't have to pay property tax. I'll pay it to the Indians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
this is a big fear though, because because the government is not going to take kindly to people who decide to protest in that way, which I'm not advocating for any type of protest of any kind. Just to be very clear, I am an idiot, disgusting sinner. Just ask Father Meekle. No, I'm just kidding. But as far as I have to go to confession once a week. If not, I'm in trouble. All right. So don't listen to me. All I'm saying is that there is a sentiment growing where people are going to feel that way. And if enough people participated in that in that type of protest, there's no way to enforce it. If 500,000 people were like, we're not paying our taxes.
Yeah, my only concern, Felix, is I don't think it'll have the effect they think it will. In fact, they might actually want people to do it that way.
I think it'll harm. You will be cutting our nose off.
I think that's playing. I think it's playing into their hands, because here's the deal: there is a big, like, this is World Economic Gathering stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
These guys, they want everybody on universal basic income. They want everyone enslaved. So they'll just change the whole monetary system if people start. I mean, they may be doing it anyway, but I mean, this whole idea that you have any choice, they'll just starve you. I mean, we're dealing in a world that your car has a kill switch, and your phone doesn't turn off at any point, and your every word that we say here on when Felix and I are talking, the AI transcribes our words. It's forever.
Yeah.
You can delete the video all you want. Everything we say is forever.
It's on
analyzed
there.
in a server.
It's official. That's right.
So I mean, this whole notion of how we understand basic freedoms and all this, it's interesting, because there's the Chinese model, or the social credit model, and that's the one Canada seems leaning towards and Europe's leaning towards. And then there's the American model, where we say we have free speech, but look, the Democrat Party wanted a ministry of truth, and they wanted to have they say it's against misinformation, but no, it's to suppress dissent against their agenda. So you need misinformation in the sense that information, if by misinformation you mean information contrary to your narrative, we need to have the, but even then it gets complicated because, can there be controlled opposition? Yes, they certainly can. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at someone like Mitt Romney or John McCain, and these people are indistinguishable from a leftist. So
Well, this sounds it, but it sounds like they're covering both angles. It's like it could be, yeah. It's
they
like
own both sides. Like
yeah, well, yeah,
in Canada in particular, I know there's a group of major families, and they own both sides. They contribute to both sides. It doesn't matter. So it's an illusion. The people have an illusion they have a choice, and then what isn't controlled by the money is controlled by the media, which is state funded, and so they don't even. And they have such shenanigans, like the politicians that are trying to fight for the people. They're insisting, oh, you have to get a security clearance, but the condition of the security clearance is you're not allowed to talk about anything that you learn. So all the shenanigans
yeah,
the bad government people are doing, now you're silencing the good guys with it. You're
yeah.
using a good idea of a security clearance to silence the people that are supposed to be protecting the people. And
That's
the
right.
thing is, it's important for Americans that are educated to learn what's going on in Canada because it's a canary in the American coal mine. Basically, they're a few years ahead of us when things go bad, and you should just be aware of what's going on there so you can recognize it before it happens down here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's crazy. So Josh, I'm glad that Josh is here. He says there was also a 4chan account that may have been linked to a prison guard, alluding to him being swapped the day before the incident in jail.
Ah, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really interesting, isn't it? I don't know what's you don't know
Well,
what.
You remember when it happened, right? Do you remember when it happened? Everyone was saying it was like the day before. People were saying he's not going to last in that jail. They're
Right.
either going to take him out or they're going to, and it was like there's no way they're going to keep eyes on him. What happened at just so happens that the most wanted or most most wanted person in his cell, the guards decided to fall asleep and take a walk around the block while that one time the camera just happened to shut off, and then then he hung himself with tissue paper. Like, okay, all
Right.
right, okay, let's just stop. All right. So let me see. Norm also says
We know one thing is certain, even if we don't know the details and the outcome, folks. There was shenanigans.
there was shenanigans.
There
Was shenanigans. Yeah, and again, I like here's the deal. They're throwing so much fake stuff on top of the real stuff.
Right.
But the thing is, they're going to use that to say, like, we're not satanic PDF files. And I'm sorry, I think that's what you're really trying to cover up. The fact
You
that
think that's the main thing? The whole
they're doing that stuff.
Delivery of Dinnergate.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't say all the code words, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, all right, here's the deal. Anything that was really incriminating in those files have long since been scrubbed. Yep. All they did was buy time to get access to those files to clean them. So if anybody like what I'm hoping for and what I'm thinking we're not going to see anyone go to jail. In fact, we might see Ghislaine Maxwell get a pardon from Trump, so this way she can exonerate him. That would be like the only reason to pardon, which would be just disgusting if that ends up being the case. Yeah, and
I mean, basically any adult that we can definitively link that has gone to that island, and those pictures that I saw, every single adult that has been on that island should have to
some sort of investigation.
Something has to happen. And I'm sorry, I'm very clear. Some of you guys are going to be disappointed in me, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm of the philosophy that there's one way to handle a crime like this. And what did our Lord say about leading the little children astray? What would it be better?
Millstone.
So we're going to give them what's better for them. Well, I'm going to bless the millstone. And so any government or sheriff or DA or justice official that needs a blessing of a millstone, tell you what, you provide the flight and no charge. I'm blessing those millstones. I'll even drive the boat for you. I'll even give them the heave ho for you. I'll hear the
Yeah, that's
confession
right.
before, but they're
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely no problem.
Sing anchors away on the way out
Anchors
there.
away, because here's the thing, and may they find God's mercy, but they'll definitely find his justice. And this is and I'm sorry, I don't believe we should imprison people like that. I believe that you millstone them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially those who aren't really sorry. I mean, like, look, yeah, like
There's no sorry for this, though. There's no.
Yeah.
I mean, feel like
now
this
when you're
isn't like
eating, you're
this
talking about
isn't
eating
like
kids.
yes. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not like you're.
Yeah.
It's not like you're. You drank a lot of beer and you got frisky with the waitress, and I mean that's
Right.
horrible. Okay, it's a sin against
Right.
chastity or whatever, and it's wrong, right? But that is
Right.
not like the deliberate destruction of little children and their defilement.
Yeah.
And it's like you got to be in a pretty dark. I mean, no amount of vodka in the world is going to make you do that or me do that, or you know what I mean. So again, not excusing the other sins. I'm just saying that they're not in the same category.
They're not same category.
And you guys can Google, like my background, a lot of you know is pre clergy was industrial psychology.
Right.
Well, the thing is that I mean, I don't know anything about abnormal. Not really. I've got like one course out of 15 courses or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In abnormal, so I'm hardly an expert in it. But what I will say this, I do recall this, that you can't cure somebody with that predisposition. You can't cure them. So if you can't cure them, there's one solution, and it's the one that Jesus himself suggests. So there you go.
Yeah. No, it's I'm kind of with you on that. I think but again,
it's an unpopular opinion amongst many Christians. Because what I'm telling you right now, there's certain sins, right? You have to deal with in a very definitive manner, and violence against children in that manner is one of them. And it's and so there's a lot of premeditated violence, quite frankly, is right. So it's I'm not talking about the guy who's his wife's ex-husband smashes a beer bottle over his head and they get into a fight. I mean, again, these things aren't right.
No,
but it's not the same sin. It's not the same intent.
No,
it's not the same. You gotta, and then these people are going on about how they're can't wait to see the next video and all this kind of stuff. I mean, what kind of dark, sick, bleeping fool do you have to be? And why are these people allowed to wander the streets? Yeah. But they'll take away the bank account to some trucker who's pro freedom in Canada without a court order, but they'll let these people wander around and take serious.
But it's not they'll let these people around walk around. It's actually we are letting these people walk around. This is kind of like where the mindset is. Yeah. And like if nothing happens, right? And if these things are happening behind the scenes, right? And there's no justice for it, it's going to happen again. And if that happens again, at what point does that sin fall on us? Because it's almost a sin of enabling, or it's, you understand what I'm saying, of looking the other way. And again, if we're going really dark here, we're talking about satanic ritual abuse.
Yep.
Okay. That is literally causing harm, especially to children, babies, unborn, for the devil.
Yep.
Okay. And I mean, like, this has got every single ingredient of like pure evil.
Yep.
And again, at what point does it fall on us? Like, you're saying you're joking around, bless the millstone, but who's going to serve that sentence up? You know what I mean? And like, what do we do to ensure that? Or I mean, I don't know. Again, this gets really dicey, right?
Okay. Well, I'll give you an answer to that. And the answer to that, and again, my friend Father Martin would disagree with me because he would say, well, it's too easy, but I don't know if it is. See, I think that there may be a divine illumination of some form. And
we're seeing it now.
No, that's not what I mean, though. I mean, I know what you're saying. Okay. Like, God, in other words, you're saying God's letting us see the truth. So, I mean, I know in that context, I agree with you. Yeah. But no, I'm talking about a very specific supernatural event. And
Okay.
that is, I would prefer to call it a pious hope rather than a prophecy, although it's been prophesized. And basically, the idea is that every soul will see its state before God for a few moments, and basically it's expected the shock will kill the very bad, and that it'll move a lot of people to repentance in a permanent way, but it'll move some people to temporary repentance for a time, and then they'll fall back in their ways. But basically,
Oh man.
no one has an excuse. See, no one has an excuse after this happens. Because sometimes sometimes you might think, oh, God's happy with me with XYZ, and then you find out maybe that he's not happy, or maybe vice versa. Maybe there's something you think that he doesn't really care about, but he's really proud of you. Well, you'd know that during the divine illumination. So it's kind of a reset of course, and that's why Father Martin says he thinks it's too easy. He thinks we're going to have a period of trial, and he may be right, but I think that things have gotten so bad. I don't see us of human power alone getting us out of this mess.
No,
So that's
absolutely not.
Yeah,
I am a soft, doughy, out of shape, middle-aged, unmotivated. You know what I mean? And again, I'm feeling this rage. Totally powerless to do anything.
Yeah, and you're saying you think some of the young guys are going to think different. You think some of the young guys are going to get angry,
or even more like the alpha chads that are older than me. That I'll say, the ones that are running the world, and you know what I mean. I'm not just putting it on my age, just over my station in life, and but they're even like future leaders or even new leaders that there's an off chance that they're actually pure at heart, to a certain degree. This is this is getting crazy. I don't know. All right. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to start incriminating myself. I'm like
let's not get Felix off the
right. And again, I'm not condoning.
Yeah,
just to be clear, I'm not condoning anything or advocating for any type of anything.
We know that.
Okay.
We're just shooting the breeze here, Felix. It's all good. I'm not actually going to take a millstone and hurt anybody either, right?
No, we're just saying that it should happen.
I will still bless them if asked to by someone in legitimate authority.
That's right.
Let's make it clear.
But you know what? And also, to say something, I think that you two, you both might be right. You and Father Martin. I think that you both might be right. We're going to get a trial. We're going to get illumination. I think both things can be true.
Yeah, both things can be true. And there's some debate on whether the illumination comes before or after it, right? But also, apparently all the stories about the illumination sort of hint that it will actually not convert everybody forever. It'll be, it's kind of like the Hebrews seeing the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea and then turning away again and making a false god. It's just human nature. It's just human nature. So
now this gets really tricky. Now, Father, if a citizen were to, out of protest, not pay their taxes for the reasons that I gave you early, are they sinning?
Yeah, like it's not your call, right? Like, I mean, it would be different if you could. Yeah, I mean, okay. So the thing is that our Lord says, "Render to Caesar unto Caesar," right? So within, like, I mean, there are lines. Like, okay, so let's say, let's make it clear. Let's say
weird.
Let's say you knew that by withholding taxes, that an evil wouldn't, like a severe evil, would stop or something. And that you had a reasonable chance of success, and you can make a moral argument for that. But the reality of it is that isn't the case, right? Like, there's not
the case. Yeah,
you deciding to say, like, I'm a sovereign citizen, I'm not going to pay anything. Like, that's not going to do anything but put you in jail.
But, right,
so, and there's no cause. The church encourages like self-sacrifice for a noble, good, but you have to have a reasonable chance of success, and you have to have a like, it can't be just
could the church call for that, or is that like totally out of bounds?
Well, you know what, it's I mean, it could under certain circumstances. So when would it make sense? It would make sense if the state forbade church attendance. Okay, so I mean, that would be an example. The church forbade church attendance, or it said, we don't like people from New Zealand, and we're going to draft your kids, all the 18-year-olds, male and female,
Right.
march and hurt all the New Zealanders. I mean, you can make an argument of a pretty robust resistance and peaceful civil resistance under such circumstances. But the fact of the matter is, church and state are supposed to work together. They're not supposed to be completely separate, and they're not supposed to be into each other's realm of operation. It's not appropriate for the church to be dictating immigration policy, for example, but
100%.
it is the church's but it is the church's place to say that a police officer should be treating everybody equal, for example. Okay, so it's a fine line, but you see the difference. One is policy that the nation is every right to make on its own, and it's a very dangerous precedent that the church is very openly telling law enforcement and government not to enforce the laws in the books rather than change the law.
Yeah.
See, that's how you know. That's how you know they're not the good side. That's how you know they're not of God, right? Because they're not advocating for the change of laws to make just laws. They're advocating for the non-enforcement of the laws that were already agreed. So that's why I don't trust those weasels. I don't trust postmodern church people. I don't. I'm the bishop against mixed religion. That's my thing. And basically, I consider all of this, they're just trying to line their own nests. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go into the internet, search for yourself, find out how many hundreds of millions of dollars these big churches have been receiving for the migrants. And you tell me that they care about the ordinary baptized. They don't give two bleeping bits. They don't care about our Lord. They don't care about the sacraments. They don't care about people. All they care about is the grift.
The money and the lifestyle.
Synodality. And they should spell synodality was S-I-N. Synodality. Yeah. Tell us how you really feel, Bishop Meagle. Okay, anyway.
I know, right? Well, me and you both are going crazy today. Yeah. So Norm says individuality, responsibility, or the overbearing collective, and a nanny totalitarianism. Right.
Yeah, well, that's they're it's kind of crazy, right? Like the tech changes everything. It's like that movie, The Matrix. It was really prescient because they can basically they're getting to the point where they can read minds if they can't already. And I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy if you see some of the stuff that's coming down the pike science-wise. Yeah. And then what are you going to do? And the church is supposed to be the forefront of speaking about this stuff, right? And I mean, instead it's worried about recycling or whatever. I don't know. I get growly. All right, let's do the next one.
All right, yeah, we only got a few comments left. Norm says, I do think mistrust of tradition and natural law and order is part of the mistrust of institutions and have turned against natural law, order, and morality. I actually disagree.
Right. You disagree?
I disagree. I think he's close. The mistrust of tradition and natural law, I do think is part of it, but it's the mistrust of tradition and law by our institutions.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Because our institutions.
Well, I don't think Norm would. I don't think, and if he's still on air, he can comment.
Yeah.
I don't think Norm's disagreeing with you. I think what he's saying is
likewise.
He says it's part of. In other words, it feeds one another.
Yeah.
It's the mistrust of tradition and national law is part of the mistrust of institutions, but also the fact that we allow immoral people in leadership in all our institutions. Right?
Shame on us.
We're not picking the virtuous. We're not picking the holiest priest to be a bishop. We're not picking the most honest straight shooter to be the bank manager. Our systems, our selection processes often select the cunning, the weaselly.
Or the lesser of two evils is still you're still electing evil.
So Scott Adams, he made a career of that cartoon Dilbert, and it was all about the absurdity of the modern employment space, where some bad people and incompetence rise to the top. It just is what it is.
It is what it is. Let me see. Father Haga says, I'm a Benedictine. All of the hate was like water on a duck's back. I'm not easily moved by the opinions of others. I'm getting there. Thank God, thank the Lord. I've been praying for it, and I do feel like it's like at this point, it's whatever you got to say. It's like what Rick and Morty. There's the line. He goes, I don't care that you're booing me. I've seen what makes you cheer. You know what I mean? So it's
Well, at a certain point, if it's a legitimate disagreement, or and you know it because the way they phrase it, right? So, if it's a legitimate disagreement, I think we should have lots of patience. And if it's just a
yeah,
basic insult to ourselves, and fine, we turn the other cheek. But it often progresses well beyond that, either to insult to God, or an insult to the mission itself, or insult of our intention, which people cannot know. So I mean, so there's a lot of lack of prudence in some of these criticisms. And I mean, you could point the finger at me for some of my language on Twitter as well, and that's and again, I'd like
I
to
mean,
think I don't cross the line of charity, where there's a certain point where you got to pattern interrupt if you think something's truly wrong. But I think, especially amongst people that are conservative or traditional Catholic, we've got an issue where people are thinking that they are the authority. And again, people could point the fingers at me too. Okay, as long as you can back up your stuff and you do it respectfully, then there you go. And there are some times when some things just aren't worthy of respect. If you've got a head of doctrine that writes books to adolescent males about healing with your mouth, well, I'm sorry, there's not a
come
lot of
on,
respect I have there, right? So you're
yeah,
gonna have a little spice coming from the old Meikle. And the same way with you guys, if you think I'm truly, so I have my supporters, I have my detractors. And but most people who are of goodwill, and you just realize the church is on uncharted ground. If they really don't think that you're on the right track, they just ignore you, they block you, they just move along, and they don't have to listen. And
right.
that's fine. And I do the same too with there's lots of people that I think are goodwill that disagree with me. I just don't engage with them, and they don't engage with me, and we're fine. We serve
Yeah,
different portions of the baptized.
right, exactly. Right, so let's see here. Father Haygood says, as a true Florida boy, I don't care unless Tampa is in the Super Bowl.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question that's going to have a bunch of you, like, your eyes bulge? Who actually played in this year's Super Bowl? I
Uh,
have no idea. You know what? The
uh,
only thing I knew about Super Bowl is Bad Bunny and Kid Rock. That's
yeah,
it.
right. Seahawks, I think was one. Seahawks in Philly.
Really?
That's
That
what it
used to be
was.
my
I
old
think it
team. I
was.
didn't even know. See, since they started taking the knee, that's it. I was
I
done.
stopped caring.
It was all dead to me.
Oh, Seahawks and Patriots. That's what it was.
Was it
Seahawks and
really? And
Patriots.
who
And I don't
won?
even know. I don't know. I think Seahawks
Ah!
won.
If
I
someone
think
if
the
someone
Seahawks won.
knows, they can put it in the comments. But that's pretty
Father
funny. So,
Haygood just said, yeah, it was Seahawks and Patriots. That's the only reason
do
I
you
know
know
is
who won
because
though?
Father Haygood told us.
That's too
Yeah, he
funny.
just said it. But yeah, and like the way I am is like I was basically I'm a Giants fan. I was a New York Giants fan through and through. But if I ever moved to a state, like for example, when I moved to Florida, I was like, okay, I'm a Florida team's fan. Like, you know what I mean? Although Giants are my number one, my immediate number two is I like the Bucks and I
Yeah.
like the Dolphins. I don't overcomplicate it. People start getting mad. Hey, well, you can't I can like whoever I want. I don't care. I'm not into the rivalries like that. So so save it. All right,
Right.
let me see. Yeah, Seahawks won. Okay, yeah, I was right. All right. So he says Father Haygood also says he's a Buccaneers diehard. All right, and it was great to see when what's his face Tom Brady, the Patriots decided to cut him after like 20 some odd years
Right.
of being a quarterback
Yeah.
because they thought he was no good. What does he do? He goes to Tampa and that same year wins another Super Bowl.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
I thought that was good for him. Like I was like, good, you know. Like I don't understand why you would do that when you finally have a career football player like a star that we don't really get anymore. Usually it's all free agencies and like the athletes get traded all over the place.
Mhm.
Let me see. Oh yeah, so he said Father Higgins says the fight isn't over until I stop breathing. I'm done with the madness. I'm done too, but I feel powerless. You know, like I am in this state is like I have to give it to God because there is nothing I can do.
Mhm.
There is nothing I can do except
No.
pray for, God's wrath and judgment. You know what I mean? And like I almost feel guilty for that because I've needed God's mercy. But this is a whole other animal. And if I'm wrong, it was like, Father Meekle teaches me, thy will be done. You know what I mean? Thy will be
Yeah.
done. But
By which
the
we mean
Lord,
God, not me.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, God's will be done. You know, oh man. Let me see. Father Higgins says, this is why I'm considering implementing the non-expedite when there are not politicians that one can vote for. Can you explain that a little bit, Father Miko?
Well, I mean, I guess I think what Monsignor's getting at is basically, you can give people permission to not exercise. Normally is a moral obligation to exercise a civic responsibility. So I'm actually
Oh,
not
to vote.
familiar with a particular mechanism. If Monsignor wants to explain more, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I really don't know how. I don't know after seeing what they've uncovered with the whole 2020 thing and everything, all these conspiracy theories have come true.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can understand, like, it's just on one hand, like, it's very anticlimactic for me when I look
Yeah.
at the current system. Like, it's like, it's no
Yes.
surprise that we were right all these years, but it's like,
Yeah,
it took us like 6 years to even get close to the truth. And then what are we supposed to do now? Have a party that we were right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just making people angry.
Oh yeah. Okay. So Father Haygood says that non-expedite is ruling that Catholics cannot vote for moral reasons.
Well, there
So
you
like,
go.
I think you were, that's kind of what you said. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
because
again, it's one of those it's a hard thing, because the minute you completely walk off, I mean, I would encourage, I'd say before, I'm not saying that that's not an arrow in the quiver or a tool you can use, but my own thinking is that we're getting it, we're always closing the door after the horse gets out. We should instead be saying to our congregations, it's your moral obligation to register and participate in the primary and pick somebody that matches Catholic values, Christian values, and
that doesn't happen though, unfortunately.
actively promote. Because I'll tell you right now, a lot of these battles are won in the district primaries.
Yeah.
They're not, by the time the candidates are selected, it's kind of too late. Like, what if you get two liberals, like just of the two different parties? Like, we got to be, I'd encourage, in fact, the opposite. I'd encourage us to get ahead of the curve and to encourage, like, it's, one of the things that Vatican II maybe had something right. It wasn't just a Vatican II thing, but a Vatican II put a light on it. And you might as well take notes right now, because I will never, how often do I say something good about Vatican II, right? But, one of the active things the laity can do is in this political sphere. And if you're not going to run yourself, then at least participate in a primary and help make sure that there are, I'd like to see like 20 traditional Catholics on every primary ballot, and one or two of them will be a contender. And then we just flood the zone, man. Flood the zone with people that believe as we do. That's what we should be doing. The whole parish should be running.
Yeah,
right?
That would work, Father. That would work. Here's the problem. And it's so obvious when I say it. Politicians are liars. All right.
Right.
And many of them will swear on a Bible. They will have the rosary around their neck. They will they will go to mass.
That's why you primary people, right? I mean, I'm not saying that the devil can't corrupt them, because I mean, a lot of power corrupts a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, I really think that unless there's a complete reset of system, which I don't exclude, like a natural disaster could do it, a major conflict could do it, God could do it. So we might have a reset of system, but short of that, I think we have to start mobilizing at the primary level. I mean, I don't care. Even the dog catcher should be a member of your church.
Yeah.
Even the dog catcher, every position should have someone from every one of our parishes running, multiple people. And you know what? And it should all be done in a spirit of fraternity. And that if you got 3 people running for school board and there's only 1 seat, all 3 should be happy if any one of them win. Yeah. And if there's some sort of elimination round, then you all back one another. So I just think we got to be more proactive in the political sphere. And also that means military service, police service, any kind of uniform service, healthcare, big time. We have got to intentionally
just got to get back to
we have to influence these institutions and restore them. And
Yeah.
and it's no good just sitting at home and just saying, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just gonna there's this
Yeah.
cartoonist, there's this cartoonist named Stephen Pastis, and he spoke at Scott Adams' celebration of, you know, his life or whatever. And but I know of this cartoonist. He writes a cartoon called Pearls Before Swine, and I love.
I remember that I remember that comic.
Yeah, there was
Good
one
comic.
I'll always remember. I have a scan of it somewhere, and it's the characters of this little rat and pig, you know.
Yeah.
And the rat comes by and he says, "Hey pig, what are you doing?" And pig's sitting in this box, and it says "End of the World" box. And he's got a hat on with beer in it. And he's drinking the beer from the hat. And the rat comes along and says, "Hey pig, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, the world's depressing me. So I've decided the only thing that's left to do is drink beer from a hat, you know, and wait till it's over." And then the next panel just shows the rat looking at pig drinking beer from the hat. And then the final panel has them two of them sitting there
Both
with
of them
beer hats
side
in
by
the end of the
side.
world box. Right.
Because it makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I don't take what I said that I'm against Monsignor, because I'm for Monsignor. I'm just saying, I think,
Yeah. No. Of
I think,
course.
I think that I think there's a step that comes before that. I think we have to energize active involvement. I think Opus Dei tried to do that, but there's all kinds of other issues there which were beyond the scope of tonight.
Yeah.
Meikle just opens up an old can of worms that takes like
Opus
6 weeks to do, right? But
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. Just get your barbed wire whips out. but anyway, and I say that in jest. Father Hagen says, Well and Rome shot themselves in the foot with the 1983 Code of Canon Law. Canon 844 was literally written for this time.
Felix, why don't you look up Canon 844 for us, and I'm just going to answer this next one here from Monsignor. He says,
okay, gotcha.
You look up the canon for us, but anyway, and that's part of the problem. Republicans and Democrats are pro-choice. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely, but again, a lot of this stuff is we are trying to handle a problem downstream. So let's try to handle the problem upstream. And part of the problem is that people are not formed in basic philosophy, so they don't understand basic morality. And, you know, the church is really, you know, the Christian church as a whole, I mean, the Church of the Baptized is really shat the bed on this, pardon the expression. Oh, see, I'm going to get comments on Twitter now. I use the word SHAT. Because I use that, I'm not a good priest. I believe it. I use the word CRAP.
How dare you?
Exactly. And that's what happened. But anyway, ex-sailor, sorry, I don't take our Lord's name in vain, but everything else is weapons free. Now, on this subject, yes, I think Monsignor's right, but it's not an equivalence. So what I mean is there's a big difference between a uneducated Republican thinking that IVF or it's just a clump of cells and we can use a pill to stop implantation or whatever. There's a big difference between that and the other party that wants to haul a living, you know, fully developed baby out of a womb and chop it up on the table or let it die in the cold. So, I mean, there is the first is just stupidity with poor philosophical and moral foundation, and we got what we reap what we sow. The second group is Luciferian, evil, and contra to the so what I never ever say the two parties are equal in anything. Ever. The only good leftist is an exiled leftist, okay? Exiled leftist or one on a C-130 with a loose door. There's just anyway, I have my biases. I do not represent myself as politically neutral at all. If you're leftist, I have no use for you. Period. And I'm not, you know, God be with you. Good luck in your path. But I guess the way I look at it is that I can't help everybody. I'm very niche, and you know, I can't help leftists. You're beyond my help. You're beyond my capacity. You're beyond my comprehension. I don't understand. When I encounter a leftist, I have only one desire, and that desire is to pick up a mirror and direct it at you to see if you have a reflection. That is my only thing with leftists. So anyway, again, tell us how you really feel there, Meikle.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so
But
so
he is
Canon 84, right? I'm
yeah.
considering playing the
Oh,
Code of
right.
Canon
Yeah,
Laws. Yeah. So it says Catholic ministers may
yeah.
lawfully administer the sacraments only
Right.
to Catholic members of Christ's
Right.
faithful, who
Yes.
equally may lawfully receive them only from Catholic ministers.
Right.
Okay, so basically, only a priest can give me the Eucharist, and only I,
Right. Well, okay,
I
no,
have
but
to be
here's
a
the thing.
Catholic.
So hypothetically, then, like Monsignor and I should not be administering sacraments to Novus Ordo Catholics unless they are in the danger of death. Or there's another canon that's not there. Maybe Monsignor knows the canon by heart, but there's another canon that says that the Catholics may approach non-Catholic ministers in legitimate spiritual need. So some people are arguing that if you restrict the traditional mass, then that counts. But I've discovered, and I used to love canon law, right? Like when I was one of my favorite professors in seminary was a canonist. He was appointed to the Apostolic Signora. He was, very competent canonist. Loved him dearly. Maltese priest. Anyway, he, I guess it boils down to, again, I used to hang out with him. I saw that canon law as sort of an applied gospel once upon a time. And now I see how these evil people use it. And essentially it's just used as a proof text. So if you're conservative, they use it to throw you out and eventually laicize you. And then if you're a liberal, well, they just ignore it. So,
All right.
canon law is not, I appreciate it. Again, it's
Father
it's,
Haygood telling me to keep reading here. Hold on. He's saying it'll answer your question. All right.
Okay.
So second paragraph, whenever necessity requires or a genuine spiritual advantage commends it, and provided the danger of error or indifferentism is avoided, Christ
Right.
faithful for whom it is physically or morally impossible to approach a Catholic minister may lawfully receive the sacraments of penance, the Eucharist, and anointing of the sick from non-Catholic ministers in whose churches these sacraments are valid.
Right.
Catholic ministers may lawfully administer the sacraments of penance, the Eucharist, and anointing of the sick to members of the Eastern churches not in full communion with the Catholic Church if they spontaneously ask for them and are properly disposed. The same applies to members of other churches with the Apostolic See judges to be in the same position as the aforesaid Eastern churches so far as the sacraments are concerned.
So for those of you who are canon law geeks or people interested in them, Huell's commentary, among others, would reference both Monsignors and my church communities as satisfying that in the footnote. So but again, there's debate. Cardinal Burke probably wouldn't agree with Huell's, but that's fine. I mean, it's like one canon lawyer, it just goes to show you like what counts, what doesn't. And unfortunately, there's as much politics involved as there is theology. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I'm glad, people should know this stuff. But again, I find in practice, it's used as a proof text, not really used as a real guideline in a lot of cases. And again, it's the exceptions that prove the rule. So I've been pleasantly surprised. I've been very happy with like the local diocese, for example, and they're pretty good. And there's some other dioceses that are pretty good. But I've also, I'm in receipt of, and probably Monsignor Haygood's the same. I'm in the receipt of inquiries all over the world, mostly Canada and the US, but and mostly just kicking the tires. But these guys that are getting canceled or laicized, right, for theological reasons, not for misconduct. And so, again, you see how the canon law is weaponized against them, and it's not equally applied because you got Rupnik, you got McCarrick, you got Worrell taking $2 million pensions or whatever, reportedly, allegedly. And these guys are all living high on the hog, but the priest that messes up and he offends some, feminists in the confessional, he gets laicized, and he's not even able to defend himself because he's not allowed to talk about what happened. So it's like, there's some real abuses with the whole canon law thing. So hopefully that gets, fixed. Where do we have?
We're going over.
And let's, I'm just skipping there. I normally let Felix do it, but so what do you, I'm curious, Monsignors, there's been some personnel changes, I guess, since I've been aware of that place. I hope that's,
yeah.
I Anyway, yeah. So I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's interesting. Looking through Archbishop Humphreys' archives, we've had some very good relationships with prior Novus Ordo bishops, officially, publicly, and we've had some less than friendly. The current guy is, a nice guy, respectful. I think he intends to be a good Catholic bishop, and I have nothing bad to say about him. But his predecessor, I'm not amused with, and the two predecessors before that were really good men. They were really supportive of us and our mission, and they got it. We're different organs in the body. So, but it's been a while since we've had a relationship like that, and that's fine. That's just the way it goes sometimes.
That's
So,
right.
I think, Felix, why don't we're at 2
Wanna
hours
wrap
and
up?
20. Shall we
Yeah,
wrap up? And
yeah.
thank
I
you.
think we had a great show.
Thanks, guys, for putting up with us. And again, a little long monologue there, but I wanted to give you a little insight to stuff that I don't think some of that stuff is widely known. And I just wanted to give tribute to God love him. I used to always call him the boss, and he was just such a sweet man to me. And he was a loving man. He could be scary. A lot of people were scared of him, and I think the reason why I got along with him was I had this silly sense of humor, and I could make him laugh, and so it made us both comfortable with one another. But I miss him, and I miss his wisdom. And I'll actually, just one last story about him before we say that prayer. Is I remember I had a horrible personnel issue. I was still a priest, but I had an issue with a parish volunteer, and for a variety of reasons, it became a bishop problem, not just a priest problem. And my goodness, if you could be in that room and see how Archbishop Humphreys handled a very delicate situation where he had the person that was in the wrong admit it, quietly agree to everything that was asked for us to remedy it, and without all the drama and politics and circus. And he had this ability to really come across as empathetic and de-escalate and disarm the crazy. And I was in awe. Here's this like nearly 9-year-old man at the time, and he was just like so wise in how he handled the situation. So, but anyway, yeah, he's going to be missed. He was loved by many, even by lots of people who didn't agree with him, but they respected him, and he's been around for so long. I mean, he's a name that anybody knows if you have any kind of interest in the traditional Catholicism that dwells outside of the institutional church. So, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God, our Father, creator of all things, we praise and thank you for your gifts. We ask you to remember your servant and son, John, Bishop. Please receive his soul and help us to discern what you want us to do to steward his mission and legacy. And may Almighty God bless us, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Love you all. Bless you all. I'll see you next week. Sorry for the late start. I now have my equipment working. I will get my microphone and my cat sorted out before we come next time. And I'll see you. What's that?
Pretty good. I was just to say we did pretty.
I was expecting cats coming down from rappel lines and stuff. Well, hey, I shouldn't give us some ideas. We got something for a new overlay. But anyway, okay.
God bless everyone. Good night.